Comic Timing is member supported by listeners like you over at patreon.com/comic timing. We thank you very much for your continued support of the show. A reminder that the hosting bill is soon to be due, and every little bit that you give towards Comic Timing ensures that we are able to pay said bill promptly, swiftly, and smoothly. And we thank you very much for every little bit that you give. For as little as $1 a month, you get behind-the-scenes access. You get some articles written by Chris Naudis. You get some behind-the-scenes video and audio every now and then. For this episode, you're going to get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes video soon to come as well. And whatever else we can throw your way over at patreon.com/comic timing. And if you'd rather do a one-time donation, feel free to do so over at paypal.me/IAM Sci-Fi. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. Hey there, folks. My name's Ian Levinstein, and welcome to episode 251 of Comic Timing. We're on the back half of 250 now, so, you know, only 249 to go until we get to 500. Woo! Oh, yeah. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Yeah.
See you there in 3013.
Yes. 3013, seriously? Seriously, dude? Come on.
We are on a better schedule.
So look, all you need to do is get a job delivering pizza.
Okay.
Deliver pizza to a lab and, make sure that it's going to a customer named Icy Wiener.
Come on!
And then, yes, you might make it till 3013.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow. Good times.
I was talking to a guy at Trader Joe's because I was wearing my Planet Express t-shirt, and he didn't even know that there was a revival on Hulu.
Wow.
Mostly because he refuses to pay for Hulu because of the ads.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, there is an ad-free version, but obviously that's more expensive, and not everybody's going to roll for that.
Yeah, he works at Trader Joe's. I mean, they pay okay.
Yeah. I mean, I still have the grandfathered in Spotify plus Hulu. So that means if I ever change my Spotify membership in any way, shape, or form, then I'll have to start paying for Hulu separately. But it's essentially Hulu for the price of Spotify, which I will continue to do as long as they offer it.
I mean, you shouldn't have Spotify because, they pay Joe Rogan.
I know, but I do. I'm sorry.
I have the Disney Plus Max Hulu bundle, but I think I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
And switch to individual because I don't get sports with Max.
That's fair.
And I'm the reason why the Knicks lost.
It's okay. So I have a question.
Hold on. For audio's sake, Chris Naudis is on this episode. Raphael Suhu is on this episode. No. We were getting ahead of ourselves, so let me just at least introduce everybody. And of course, guess what? I'm Ian. I'm on every episode. Anyway, please continue, Chris.
No, it's a great cold open. I've been listening to the Lonely Island Seth Meyers podcast, and there are episodes where they just start talking.
Oh, I know.
And they make jokes out of it. They're like, yeah, we're real professionals. We don't introduce ourselves. So wait, I was talking about, so I have a question.
Yes.
New season, Rick and Morty, where is it streaming? Because it claims it's on Max, but I don't see season 8 on there.
Yeah, I have not seen it on Max either. I've been using the Adult Swim app using my mom's login, so I mean, it's still there. There's still an Adult Swim app, and there's still a Cartoon Network app, even though there is no Cartoon Network website anymore, and I'm pretty sure there is no Adult Swim website anymore. Basically, it's like they're launching pads for freaking Max.
So I have no idea what's going on with that. They
either.
were making a big deal about how they wanted Max to, now it's HBO Max again. They wanted it to be, a destination for adults. And I would hope that, Adult Swim would be part of that. Lazarus is on Max. But yeah, I went looking for Rick and Morty. I did not see it. I had to watch it on Plex. Thank you, Vince. Lazarus, it's been good though. I told Raph that the most recent episode, because I do believe that one of the directors is the John Wick guy, Chad don't remember his last name.
Stalowski, yeah.
Yeah, so he does the action for Lazarus, and there's one of those fighting scenes that's just satisfying, if you know what I mean. Like where every hit is just perfect, everything's clean and tidy, and there's no slack in the fight, and it's beautiful. I'm not gonna get creepy about it, but it is just deeply satisfying.
Yeah, I'm seeing multiple things here. One says September 1st for Rick and Morty on Max, and I think it might be on Max in other territories immediately. So I think like Asia has it already. I don't know if we do. So that's why I've just been using, the Adult Swim app to do it, or you can illegally download it because oh no, I'm sorry.
Hey, look.
Don't illegally download it. That's bad.
I am paying for HBO Max. There are not a lot of shows for me to watch on there because Last of Us is done. Last of Us, season 2 wasn't great. I mean, the story of the game was kind of controversial with a lot of people.
Yeah.
John Oliver, I could watch, and then it's really just the animation stuff. I mean, I don't care about Carrie Bradshaw. Okay.
Mind you, I actually really liked the first episode of season 8 of Rick and Morty. I think it was it was an interesting premise. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's me and Paramount Plus, because since there's this big gap of Star Trek in my heart, I don't really see the point of having Paramount Plus.
Well, here's what you do, Raf. Here's what you do. It's really simple. Binge watch all 22 some odd seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race, and then you're just completely good.
Or I could just rewatch TNG, DS9, and all 10 Star Trek movies and not have to deal with something new.
But you've never done that.
You could be like me, yeah. I'm watching. I said this on a previous episode. I am watching Twilight Zone when I don't have anything else to watch. And again, I love that show. That is part of my culture.
Yes.
I am a New Yorker. I am Puerto Rican. I am also a big nerd. Twilight Zone is just in my DNA, and it's interesting. And I recommend to anyone listening to this that you should, if you haven't watched every Twilight Zone episode, you will see a lot of references, things that are referenced in later shows.
Of course.
The Simpsons, referenced a lot of stuff, like the episode Little Girl Lost, which I had never watched until recently because I realized, oh yeah, I should probably check that out. And I watched this one episode. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was one of the things that Ryan Coogler cited as inspiration for Sinners.
Ah, yes.
It was the life of though basically the plot of the episode was a dude died, and then he just got up out of the coffin and then just was acting like nothing was wrong, and everybody was freaked out by it. And and that's basically the whole episode is just dude's just not dead, and everybody doesn't know what to do with that, and it has that off-puttingness that you also have in Sinners. Though in Sinners it's vampires, we know it's not going to go well. Does
he at some point also dance an Irish jig? Because that would just make it even better, really.
Man, I know everybody loves the scene with the music through the generations thing, but let's be honest, Irish jig, that slapped.
Oh my God, it was so good. I love every single thing about that movie. That is my favorite movie of the year so far. Plain and simple. I hope it gets nominated for best picture. It deserves it. It's one of the best horror movies of recent memory, and it's just one of the best movies, period, of recent memory. Coogler knocks it out of the park with that entire thing.
Oh, so the episode, I just Googled it because that's the beautiful thing about, the internet and all that. It's called The Last Rites of Jeff Myrtlebank.
Okay.
Season 3, episode 23.
There you go.
Originally aired in 1962, and it turns out I had actually seen the episode before, but it was nice to just rewatch it and be like,
sure,
yeah, I can see because Sinners, you can see he wears a lot of his inspirations on his sleeve. It's that episode. It's obviously From Dusk Till Dawn, but less rapey.
Yes, very much so. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Every acting performance in Sinners is amazing. I love it to pieces. So good stuff.
Yeah, and Ludwig Göransson.
Yes. All right. So let's move it on back to comic books for start here. Of course, not great news, but pretty much anybody who hasn't been living under a rock has probably heard by now that unfortunately Peter David passed away at the age of 68. Peter David was sickly for a couple of years now, and I know he had a GoFundMe running at one point to try to pay for his his medical bills, and now that is basically now also going towards funeral payments and stuff like that. But yeah, one of the most seminal comic book writers of the 80s, 90s, and today. Absolutely. I wouldn't be into DC Comics the way I am without Peter David. He got me into it with Young Justice. That was my foot in the door for DC, outside of the random issue of Zero Hour I picked up, thinking that it was the first issue, and it turned out to be the last one because it was issue 0. But nonetheless, Young Justice was my Teen Titans. Like, it was the right time, the right age characters, and the right persona to really get me interested in DC. I was very much a Marvel guy first, and Peter David helped make that happen, along with Todd Nauck, obviously, and his kinetic artwork. And him and Todd worked as a team on multiple things over the years. Their run on Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, I remember really enjoying. And obviously Peter David, Supergirl, Aquaman, Hulk, obviously. I mean, his Hulk run to this day is known as the Hulk run that brought Hulk back, essentially. Like, with the Gray Hulk and the Smart Hulk and all the different iterations that we had over the years, I don't think Hulk would be the character that he is right now, especially not in the MCU, without the contributions that Peter David brought to the character. So very sad to see him pass, and obviously, you guys can share your thoughts on it as well.
Well, yeah, we're both like, who's going to talk first?
Yeah.
I guess I'm talking first, Raph. Sorry.
No,
Raph.
do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can bounce back and forth. The one thing that I definitely noticed looking at all of the people talking about it online, I mean, mostly when I say online, I mean Blue Sky, because, I'm not on Vichy Twitter and I'm not on Facebook. I mean, I still have Facebook, but I try not to be there. Join the Comic Timing fans group.
Yes. That's a good place to go on Facebook.
Yeah.
We're nice people, we promise.
Yeah, but like the thing I saw repeatedly, people saying over and over and over again, and I think it stuck out to me because it's very true for me too, was that Peter David was like the first like comics writer they actually sought out. Like, they knew, okay, Peter David, that's a good writer. Yeah. If I find other stuff that says Peter David, it's probably also going to be good. For me, that wasn't really with the comic books so much. Like, I had read some Peter David comics. I would know him mostly from X Factor. But for me, it was his Star Trek novels. I read, I think I had gotten Q squared. Oh, I got Q-in-Law as like a little gift from my dad. Like, I won an award at school, and he took me to the store and he let me pick something out. And I was like, ooh, Star Trek novel. And then I had to read every novel by Peter David. Like, I ended up getting, there was Q-in-Law, Q squared, Imzadi 2, Vendetta. I read them all.
Yeah.
I read the New Frontier series, which I enjoyed very much, even though it's very Marty Stew. Like, the main character is definitely Peter David wanted to bang Elizabeth Shelby.
Fair.
Yeah.
Also, with a little touch of Dune in there.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I enjoyed his novels. I think my first real thought of him as a person, as a human being, was I saw him at a Star Trek convention, but he wasn't talking about Star Trek. He was talking about working on Babylon 5. But, and he wrote a handful of episodes. Like I said, he was one of the few writers who was not J. Michael Straczynski to write an episode of Babylon 5. So that was a big deal. I mostly remember him talking about it because he was doing a slideshow, and he was showing behind the scenes photos, and every other photo was just a photo of his kids at Sesame Place.
Nice.
So that was like the running joke. And he's like, here's Mira Furlan getting her makeup put on, and here's my kids at Sesame Place. Oh, look, it's Bill Movie. Oh, and here's my kids at Sesame Place. And it was very funny and very cute, and I've never been to Sesame Place.
I have, and don't go as a camp counselor. That's not fun. Okay.
Yeah, and it's only for little kids anyway. Like, I've so. But yeah, that was my major thing with Peter David. I also have read, and this is one of the things I cited in my little, everybody had to make their little obituary posts, and mine was that I enjoyed his novels, and I didn't even realize it was like one of his first original novel was Nightlife, and I have that, and I thought it was really good. Like, that's a King Arthur in modern time kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
I think he runs for mayor it's been a while. I haven't read it in like 20 years, but I thought it was pretty good. Like the guy could do original stuff,
Yeah.
but we know him more for writing other people's characters,
Mm-hmm.
stuff he didn't own, which segues into the larger tragedy. But I would like to hear Raf's eulogy of him before we get into the nitty gritty.
Picture it. Sicily, 1932. No.
No. Don't.
Picture it.
No.
Chatham Square Library, 1989.
Better.
A 5-year-old Raph is going to the library to pick up books. He likes Star Trek. He
Yes.
likes superheroes.
Yes.
He sees Imzadi by Peter David. He picks up. He doesn't borrow. I don't remember finishing reading Imzadi. I just remember picking it up and reading it. And I remember named Peter David. And that is the first writer I'm pretty sure I remember going, I want to read his work again. So,
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm 5 years old. This is like a hallmark for me. And, this is before I'm really a comic book reader. But Star Trek, I've been watching Star Trek since I was like 3. I'll read it. So the first book I remember finishing from Peter is, let me see if I can find it on his wiki page here. It's a Star Trek kids novel called Starfleet Academy.
It was like War. It had War.
Yes,
and
Worf's
it had
first year at the Academy, and the Picard, which Roktak
Zach,
is a member of.
But
Yes.
Zach, God, I can't remember his last name. But some of the characters would be in New Frontier.
Yes, and what's her face? Rebecca something. She's like in security.
Is this Worf's first
engineer?
adventure? Is that the?
Yes,
Yeah,
Worf's
yeah,
first
yeah.
adventure.
Okay.
That was there's like 3 of them. I only ever read the first one, and I've never read any of the. I need to read those other 2 because it's been 30 years since I've read the first one, and I really should finish that series to find out what happens to all the characters. I don't know what happens to Worf. Is Worf going to be okay? Does he graduate the academy?
Well, one
I
thing,
don't know.
One thing.
So Raph, I'm sorry, Raph. I will let you know. Worf is not okay. He is so not okay.
He is not
listen.
a merry man.
No, he's also arguably like fiction's worst father. But we don't have to go there.
Also, look how bishy.
Oh no, that's Gendo. That's Gendo Akari.
Look how bishy he looks
that's
on this
fair.
cover. Like he is the most bishy he has ever looked on this cover. Like, oh my god.
Yes, I have this book somewhere still. When I went through my stuff, I found it again.
Nice.
But this was my first. I don't know if it's the first Star Trek novel I finished. It's the first one I remember.
Yeah.
And so he started me on my. He was a big contributor to my Star Trek fandom. And then when I started reading comics again, we're the same age, Ian, and the first comic book name I remember is Dan Jurgens because he wrote The Death of Superman. That was 1992, which is much earlier than Young Justice. But Young Justice was one of my mainstays back in those days of 97, 98. Young Justice, JLA. So like Peter David's been there for me for a very long time.
Yeah.
From Young Justice to X Factor. We were all X Factor readers in the 2000s. We read it for a very long time.
Yep.
I went back to read the Hulk stuff. He's the creator of the Gray Hulk.
Indeed.
Right?
Yep.
And he did a couple issues of She-Hulk.
Oh, his She-Hulk run was actually pretty decent.
Yes, it was pretty good.
Not as good as
And I
Dan
think
Slott's run, but his but still pretty damn good.
I might be wrong about this, but I think Slott said he was inspired by that run. I'm not. It's been a long time since I've read that.
You know what? I
me.
think the run that I'm thinking of came after Slott. But I could be wrong about that. Maybe there was another one before that he was actually inspired by.
Didn't he have a brief one in the 80s?
That might be it. Yeah. Well, I know John Byrne obviously worked on She-Hulk for the most part, but it's
yeah. I'm getting them. Sorry, I'm getting them mixed up. My brain's fried.
That's fine. Yeah.
So I mean, and the best part of all this is being Mr. Midtown Comics for 12 years of my life.
Yes, that was your name.
I got to meet him. And I got to talk to him, and I got to thank him for all the work he did, and we got to chat a little bit. And a lot of people say this, who have met him, but like as a comic store employee, who he doesn't have to pay attention to. I'm just there to like make sure the line's good, or I'm just there to grab his books that he's grabbing from that he has on hold with us. He stopped to talk to me and say hi, and we talk about his books. We talked about New Frontier briefly because I was like, oh, I'm getting back into New Frontier now that you're finishing the series in comic form, and we're talking about that and our favorite characters and all that. And he's so great. He was so gracious. He was so kind. at the store, at conventions. I don't think I saw him very many times at conventions, but
I got to spend a decent amount of time with him at the Super Wild Pig Con that Chris Eberly put on a couple years back. Him and J.K. Woodward were tabling together for basically promoting Fallen Angel. And that after it had left DC, and I think IDW, if I remember correctly, were the ones that wound up putting it up after that. So they were tabling together there, and I spent a decent amount of time with them there. Peter David was also one of the first interviews I did at San Diego Comic-Con back in the day. I think that was right around the time that he put out that How to Write Comics book that he put out.
I think I have it.
Yep, and he was gracious with his time. He had no idea who the hell I was, but I certainly know who he was, and he gave me the time of day, and I appreciate that. I really do.
For the record, he did one. He did one issue of She-Hulk back in '89.
Okay,
and that's what threw me off.
Well, there you go. There you go. Yep. But I mean, obviously, for all the highs, I mean, there's some stuff that didn't exactly thrill me that Peter David did over the years. But I will say this, on the long list of comic book creators that have done so-so things over the years, his so-so stuff is only a little bit so-so, to be honest with you.
I would say he never did anything that actively hurt anyone.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
He could be a little self-absorbed, a little obnoxious sometimes. Because I remember, the thing is, I'm trying to remember, because I think I've probably mostly wiped this from my memory. I remember after the whole, after Decimation, Marvel, X-Men, all the mutants lose their powers. And it could have been me who brought this up at a panel. It was, or it could have been someone else. I don't actually remember. This is like how old I am, is that my memory has fucking Swiss cheese in it. But, we brought up the fact that the X-Men seem to be getting kind of increasingly nasty and like unpleasant. Like it was becoming actively unpleasant to read the X books. And I or someone else, again, I do not remember at this point.
Yeah.
I think it was me. It was like, it's really not fun to read. And he decided to be the panelist to answer this question, and he turned it into a thing about the Holocaust. And if your people have been wiped out, maybe you'd be a little nasty too, and you'd be, really selective and exclusionary. Like he just kind of went off, and it's like, how do you argue with that? He brought up the Holocaust.
Yeah,
like really.
Yeah, he pulled that trump card out real quick, huh?
Yeah. Again, I don't remember if it was me or someone else who brought it up. I do remember going to his table afterwards. This was at C2E2. And I think I wanted to talk to him about it. And I didn't get to it because somebody else got there first. Somebody else who was at that same panel, black guy, basically went off on Peter David. Like, I was still pretty polite about it. But he was just like, if they like wiped out every black person, like that's not like an excuse for cruelty. The guy was just.
Yeah.
And I thought, I thought this man made a good point. Like him and I listened to them talk to each other, and they actually did come to like some of an agreement.
They did, yeah.
But I still always get that feeling, like, Peter David's always had a chip on his shoulder.
It is certainly possible. I mean, the other thing that I was going to bring up is the fact that back in the day, I don't know how many of our listeners are aware of it or remember it, but there was a very thriving live journal community known as Scans Daily. And that was a place where I participated in it. Comic book creators participated in it, and it was a place for people to post scans of comics, not full scans like that. We were never allowed to post full.
That
issues.
was a separate community.
Yes.
They separated it in case the banhammer came down.
Yes,
so that at least it wouldn't. Because Scans Daily, it was very loose on the fair use argument because people would post segments of comics.
Oh, yeah.
Weren't ever supposed to post the entire issue.
Right.
But most of the time, people would post like, "Oh my God, you got to check out this scene. This is my favorite scene." This was before we had access to things like Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe. So in a lot of ways, it was the only way for people to read some of these issues.
Yep.
Torrents existed, but I used to just go through Scans Daily like every week just to catch the highlights.
Yeah.
It's almost like those VH1, highlight shows of the week. I posted in there. I remember I was posting Eagle, the manga, which has never been reprinted.
Yep.
And that's why people were like, wow, what is this? Oh my God, this is amazing. Which, Dark Horse, whoever, please reprint it. It's I think it actually would be nice right about now, considering all the shit show. But yeah, like, does Ian want to explain what happened?
Yeah. Long story short, Peter David was the one who brought Scans Daily to the attention of Marvel Comics, and Marvel Comics then gave them the banhammer, gave them the cease and desist, like, you're posting our stuff without permission, and LiveJournal responded by taking the community down.
I mean, they were in their rights. Yeah, you don't have the full details because I was there when it went down, and it's a little chaotic. But apparently someone, I think, had took issue with something Peter David wrote, and they were like, God, go die in a fire, which is that's kind of hyperbole that we have.
You should never say that in general. Like, it's just, it's
but
bullshit.
Still, it's like
you say stuff you don't intend to.
Yeah, we know it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Just like I'm not changing subject here, but like a few weeks ago, some reporter who works at the New York Times reported to HR that his editor yelled, "I'll fucking kill you if this article is over 2,000 words," and he reported it to HR, and literally everybody's like, you don't have a very thick skin, do you? That's literally what every editor says.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. Is like he said something, Peter David wrote something that I think they thought was like sexist or whatever, and they were like, die in a fire. And Peter David was like, well, actually, my best friend died in a house fire a few months ago, and this is very hurtful. And then he reported it. Like, you're basically punishing everyone in the community for like one person kind of being an insensitive asshole.
Well, straight up, plain and simple, don't be an asshole.
Yeah, it was just assholery on top of assholery. And it the thing is, it did sour a lot of people in Peter Day, because he actually would show up in the community and try to defend himself. And everybody's like, the rest of us were cool. Like, why are like everyone getting hurt because of this shit? And when you talk about people, like other creators had participated, like you said, Gail Simone. I remember Warren Ellis was in there, and it was actually the funniest thing because someone had made like a supercut or the equivalent of a supercut, like all these different panels of the White Queen of Emma Frost going like, "Oh, don't make me blank or I shall surely die." And there were like 20 of these in different issues, and he was just like, he just commented with, "I'm so embarrassed." And I think you don't get that kind of magic in other places. Like,
no, not anymore.
You can't really, like, you can't. It's hard to do that on stuff like Twitter because everything would have to be a separate post.
The only real place that you do get a little bit of that magic these days is probably R Comics, like the Reddit comic book community, which reminds me a lot of Scans Daily, because there will people post, they only post like maybe 2 or 3 pages, but they will post their favorite scenes from a comic and discuss it, because that's essentially what Scans Daily, that's the heart of what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, it was discussions. It was where I went to commiserate about how they murdered my boy, Captain Boomerang Jr. I was so depressed after that issue came out. It was so bad.
Oh, Boomer.
But yeah, like, no, that's just, that isn't Peter David's legacy.
No, it's
just
not
a thing. It is, but it happened around the same time as like the incident at the con and other things. And this kind of, I had this discussion with Ian where, we had this offline, but I will bring some of it up, like that Peter David, like, let's get into the fact that the guy basically died in poverty.
Unfortunately,
absolutely sucks. And we talk about how in this industry we need to take better care of our creators. And I have to wonder how much of it was that nobody wanted to work with him at a certain point, because there are some creators have health problems and they seem to be able to make it happen, and others don't. And I'm not blaming Peter David for it.
No.
In general, we're not an industry that's set up to take care of people.
Sure.
It is a largely freelance industry, which means people aren't getting a salary. They aren't getting health insurance through Marvel or DC. And we don't have a union. I think that's the biggest problem we have.
Absolutely.
Honestly. Yeah. Because I can't say, oh, that's like, everything is like that. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't hear this happening in, say, Hollywood as much.
No, you don't.
Because there are the famous actors and there are the working actors. But the thing is, they are all united by the Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA. Like, SAG-AFTRA. I think it is just basically one guild at this point. And the thing is, we don't have that for comic creators. We don't have a union where that like Mark Waid and Tom McFarlane can sit on the board and, make sure that smaller people are taken care of.
Sure. And part of it is that similar to, to talk about something that both Raph and I are more than familiar with, as fans of wrestling, that wrestlers are freelance essentially. Like, even though they're signed to a quote unquote contract, they are they're contractors, and when comic book creators do a book for a company, they are for the most part freelancers. They are contractors. They are not going to receive health care from Marvel Comics for writing a couple of stories. There are few and far between who wind up getting exclusive contracts with the company. And those who get exclusive contracts with the company then actually wind up getting benefits as part of that, for the most part. But
yeah, I mean, that's the thing is we do need some kind of unionization, because if you look at the structure of TV and movies,
Yeah.
is that you get royalties for the things you work on. And
Yes.
if it gets, re-aired, it gets put on streaming. And the thing that's why we keep getting all these strikes, is they're constantly going to bat, being like, people cannot support themselves on what you're paying. The fact that I forgot, one of the actresses from Orange is the New Black was showing off her check for $13.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like one of the biggest shows on Netflix back in the early days, like one of the things that made them a streaming powerhouse. And this woman's getting checks for $13. And the comics, of course, doesn't have that. What we have is these piecemeal agreements where everybody's arguing like, well, I created this character for the company, but maybe I should get some recognition for that.
Yeah.
Or and even though it was work for hire, you're using it in a movie, why don't I get paid for that? And like, that is like Peter David's tragedy, is that he did create a lot of versions of characters.
Yes.
That are successful, but he never wholesale you don't really create anything wholesale for the companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, to do work for other people. But of course, you don't get royalties from it. We don't have that system. And even if we did, I have no idea. Like, apparently the thing that kept Peter David going the most was the fact that he created Space Cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
He got more money off of that. Because again, unionization, they make sure people get paid royalties.
Yes.
I mean, that's to me is the real tragedy here. Like, because I do wonder, I mean, when I mentioned Peter David being cantankerous, and I do wonder why he didn't do more TV. And it's come up, like, why did he never write an episode of like Prodigy?
Yeah.
And things like that. Like, he's never actually written an episode of Star Trek.
He's never written Star Trek proper.
Yeah.
It's weird. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know if we're going to find out that, like, he got into a fist fight with like, with Roddenberry's kid or something. It literally makes no sense to me.
Ian, you reminded me. I really love industries with shitty business practices.
I mean, look, man, it's not our fault that they have these shitty but at the same time, yeah, unfortunately the case. Like, looking at the stuff that Peter David worked on over the years, 5 episodes of the Young Justice TV series. So he did write 5 full episodes of that. He is credited for that. He also worked on, I forgot about this. He wrote the Bible and story for the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions and Spider-Man Edge of Time video games.
Oh yeah, I remember, because I had to playtest a couple copies of those games, and his name popped up in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Ben 10 Ultimate Alien. He wrote a couple of episodes for, as well as Ben 10 Alien Force. Roswell Conspiracies, Aliens, Myths, and Legends. Apparently, he wrote an episode for. He was the writer of the Aquaman Battle for Atlantis video game. As you said, Babylon 5. He wrote 2 episodes of that. Space Cases. He wrote all 17. But the only other thing he wrote, and here's something I didn't know: X-Men, the animated series. He is uncredited for working on the Nasty Boys concept in Till Death Do Us Part 2, and also Reunion Part 1 and Reunion Part 2. He's
Script
uncredited,
doctor.
but technically, script doctor, exactly.
Yeah, that's a script doctor. Like, script doctoring is one of the dirty secrets of movies and TV. Like, the fact that Carrie Fisher, we know her mostly as Princess Leia, but her bread and butter was being a script doctor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of that came out the older she got, the less she gave a fuck. And then when she was dead, everybody's like, oh, yeah, she helped rewrite this script and this script and this script. She's the only reason this movie wasn't complete shit. So, like, Peter David was, like, the load-bearing creator of a lot of comics media.
Well,
but again,
even to this day, honestly, until he passed, a lot of the Marvel stuff he was still working on were stuff that filled in gaps in Spider-Man's history. Like, he wrote some Spider-Man black costume stuff most recently, that filled in like gaps in history on there. I believe he also wrote some Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider stuff that filled in gaps in that part of the history there.
So like Jamal's not here because I think what Jamal would be talking about is like Jamal, we love you, man. Hope you're listening to this episode.
Yes.
He talks a lot about the reason he is doing his own creator-owned stuff because he knows that, he is one of those people that's very firmly, it's work for hire.
Mm-hmm.
You signed a contract, you know what you were getting into.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm kind of on Jamal's side with that because you look at what my career has been. I work for Pokemon, even if I had my little creative triumphs, my name isn't on most of them.
No. Yeah.
Like anything cool I did. I know Ian's very proud of the one episode he named, but it's not like his name is in the credits anywhere.
It's not. It definitely isn't. Yeah.
Yeah, like you give up that part of yourself. You give up that credit to know that you made something you care about a little better.
Well, a perfect example of that is without Reddit and without them posting it to Facebook afterwards. I posted this to the Comic Timing fan group. I had no idea that Peter David wrote the Bible for the 2003 Teen Titans animated series because it's not on his IMDb. He's not listed as, like showrunner or co-creator of the animated series. This was clearly a work for hire job where he wrote the Bible for the series, general concept, what it was going to be, and then once he was paid, he moved on and he did something else. But
on the first day, Peter David looked upon the void and said, "Let there be Titans."
and then eventually have them be tiny.
But that is just it. Is like a lot of creative work goes uncredited. And it feels like there isn't a drive to really improve it. And yeah, I know we're all comics fans. We've all talked about Siegel and Schuster trying to get more credit for Superman, trying to get money for Superman is what they're really trying to get.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going back to it. Like Jamal wanted to work his own stuff so that he at least would be able to know that he could get royalties from it.
Yeah.
But people will still sacrifice that bit again to work on the things they care about. And I think that is ultimately Peter David's legacy is that he liked making stuff better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is what he did with the Hulk 100%,
Yeah. But now again, my brain is very bad at remembering where I wanted to go with this. And it's just, again, creative industries are very bad at crediting people. I do remember, I tell this story often, like I posted on Reddit and I said, why don't books have credits? Like movies have credits, albums have credits, video games have credits. I got voted down to oblivion. I got voted down to 1,000 people voted me down. It murdered my karma score. And there was a few comments I don't know why everybody's voting for you down. It's a perfectly legit question. And most of the comments, people were just like, well, that's what the thank yous are for. The afterword is for it. I'm like, but that's not a formalized crediting system. But the thing is, I know I'm on the right side of history with that question because I've seen more and more books are crediting people.
Yes.
And that is the step towards making sure people like Peter David get what they do, because even not getting paid or isn't even as important as getting credited, because at least when he gets credited, it's easier to get work when you get credited.
Yes.
I'm not saying exposure is not going to pay the bills, but it does at least increase your odds of getting your next job. That's the problem when you can't even put the goddamn thing on your resume, on your LinkedIn. That's the biggest, I think, tragedy, the biggest hurtful thing that we do to people who work in creative industries.
And I know that newer contracts with Marvel and DC, especially for newer characters, have had worked into the contract that at least some sort of royalties go to the creator. I know, for instance, Ms. Marvel does actually get some royalties to her creators for being created. It's not always the case, though, unfortunately, especially with older characters that were originally created by Stan Lee, which were then made into something different and unique by Peter David.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest problem is when a character isn't created by this person, but they did the work to make them important. I think our biggest example of this is actually just Deadpool.
Oh, absolutely.
The fact that we still talk to freaking Rob Liefeld about it, even though he didn't do any of the work that made Deadpool popular.
No, he didn't.
Again, we talk about Saint Fabian Nicieza. We love you, man. You like oh man, I like as sad as I am about Peter David, when we lose people like Fabian Nicias, I'm just gonna start crying.
Don't you jinx him, okay? Don't you jinx him.
No, he won't
Joe
live forever
Kelly.
because I've said his name.
Yeah.
Joe
Joe
Kelly,
Kelly.
Gail Simone,
Absolutely. Yeah. You know.
Daniel Way
Mm-hmm.
had a long run.
Yeah.
I mean, the video game of Deadpool is based on the Daniel Way style Deadpool.
Greg Duggan.
Yeah.
You know,
I do feel like Marvel and DC to some extent, but I think Marvel was really doing it first, where they have their special thanks and they list all of the people whose work was drawn on
Yes.
for a particular thing. I wish that was more prominent.
the
movie,
I also wish that actually gave them money when they did that. I mean, it's nice to give them special thanks, but a lot of the times it then does not actually equal
I think they
royalties
did in
in
the
return.
beginning,
Yeah.
and now it's becoming less and less of a thing now,
Yeah.
which sucks because you're gonna make $800 million on this movie. You could send a couple $1,000 to the people who gave you the story.
We know that Disney is ridiculously cheap, despite being one of the largest companies in the world,
Yeah.
largest entertainment companies anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing I remember when they merged with Fox, there was a big controversy was that they were not paying the authors of tie-in novels the royalties they were due.
Yes.
They were literally arguing that they had the rights to the intellectual property, but none of the obligations from it. Basically, we own this
ridiculous.
book, but all of the contracts that were attached to it, we don't have to follow.
No, thank you. No.
So people like Alan Dean Foster, were just not getting the money they were due. And mind you, this is these sums as compared to what someone might be asking for a $1 billion film, like for the money you're asking for a tie-in novel might only be like $2,500, $5,000. These are pittances to a company like Disney, but can make a big difference to a freelance writer.
Absolutely, yeah. By the way, quoting from the New York Times obit for Peter David, which it is great that he was known well enough to actually get a New York Times obituary written about him. So that's
they're
pretty
trying
awesome.
they're trying to do more pop culture stuff. Like they did do a obituary for Akira Toriyama.
Yeah.
I made fun of it online because I said it's clear that they understood he was important but
Yes.
didn't understand why. But you said the quote from the read it, Ian.
So Mr. David's path to comic book writing was not straightforward. He spent 4 years trapped on Marvel's business side before he broke through to editorial, and it would be another 2 years before he could afford to write full time. As he recalled in his memoir, love the name of this memoir, by the way, track it down. I haven't read it. I will read it now. Mr. Sulu Grabbed My Ass and Other Highlights from a Life in Comics, Novels, Television, Films, and Video Games. That came out in 2020. His father had warned him, your hobbies are nice, but you can't make a living out of science fiction and comic books. But Mr. David pointed out that was exactly what I did. So to him, it was a life well lived in the world of science fiction, but also in those words tells us that it's not exactly a lucrative industry for the writer, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, you see a bunch of writers, including, friend of the show, Zach Davidson, who said, this is why I keep my day job.
Yeah.
Because I don't want my obituary, people be like, oh, we have to make a GoFundMe to pay the funeral expenses, or, oh yeah, he died in the hospital, with these high insurance bill, with high medical bills and all that stuff. It's definitely like a lot of mixed feelings out of this. And again, it's just the way we treat, I think, creatives in our culture in general. It's not even just comics at this point.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think it is just a lack of union representation.
Lack of union representation, and in turn, lack of actual, healthcare outside of, getting freelance insurance, which can be quite expensive. And really just the support from the company. Like it's great when they keep coming back to you for work and you're well liked, but also, as we well know as comic book fans, all it takes is a change in editorial for you to suddenly have your well dry up. Like if it's an editor that you've been working with time and time again steps away, goes to work on something else, or leaves the company and gets replaced with someone else, they're going to go with their favorites. They're not going to necessarily go with the same creators.
I think this was the other thing that came out for me when talking about Peter David. Well, like reading his obituary and like Wikipedia page and all this stuff, and the fact that like that article I think was a little misleading. Like he was trapped on the sales side. I'm like, no, he got a job as a salesperson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't even think he was really intending to write, but he like slowly eased his way into it. And I'll admit, like, this frustrates the hell out of me because I spent years trying to get any job at Marvel because everyone who's ever read Marvel, and I think DC too, but I feel like I read about it more with Marvel, like, know that once you're in the building, your odds of writing a comic are actually very good.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of gross considering how many established writers would love to write comics.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, it's like Peter David's like, yeah, I'm a sales guy, but I'd like to write. And they're like, yeah, well, nobody wants to write Hulk. Want to write Hulk? And, he turns in this acclaimed run.
Yeah.
And I always think of, even though I don't mind the comics, but I'm still bitter about, like, Scott Lobdell got his job writing the X-Men because he happened to be walking by Bob Harris's office at the time.
Yep.
He was not working at Marvel. He was like friends with some people at the Marvel. He just happened to be in the hallway, and Bob was like, hey, we need a writer for X-Men. And again, every single person who's ever wanted to write a comic is just like tearing their hair out at this story. Ian said to me, in private, like, I don't think that's the way it is anymore.
No.
But the fact that it used to be like that is just, I think that says a lot about the industry in general. It is why it is. And the comics industry is just held together by duct tape. It's just ridiculous. Like,
I would write Darkhawk uncredited.
And he already has, but he can't talk about it because he's under NDA. But no, I agree. Same thing. Like, I applied for so many jobs over the years the same way you did, Chris, hoping that I would at least get a foot in the door. One way or the other, whether
it's just frustrating when I have Pokemon on my resume and I still don't get callbacks.
I know, it's ridiculous.
I've worked in the industry everywhere except where I wanted to work.
Oh my god!
And now I don't even work in the industry.
Yeah, and I know maybe some people listening are like, well, what you're supposed to do is write your own comic, and I'm like, that is such a non-starter because there are so many people who are writing comics who will never get anywhere. And something that always bugged me is like, I don't have a high level of artistic skill, and I know you can say that doesn't matter. Like, look at Ryan North. Ryan North was just doing clip art, but I will say Ryan North also benefited from the webcomics, the Sphere, like the bubble that existed for a few years.
Yeah.
Like anybody who made a webcomic in that period of time did kind of blow up and become semi-famous.
Yeah.
But I always remember the fact that Brian Michael Bendis did start out writing and drawing his own comics. And then I'm at, I think I read an interview or something, and I think it was like Quesada outright told him, like, your art is shit. And I'm like, yeah, Brian Michael Bendis is a good writer, but damn, don't tell people that they should be writing and drawing their own comics if they want to make it in the comic industry, and then shit on the work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, this is what's going to happen. If this is the advice you're going to give people to get into the comics industry, don't crap all over them, whatever they turn out. Like, that's
which goes back to.
Sorry, this is my rant.
No.
I'm done.
But also,
my art is dog shit. I openly admit to my art being dog shit, and it's like, believe me, having tried to meet collaborators, trying to get people to work together on a project, them completely throwing out all my ideas and wanting to do something else, and then ultimately starting to write something that they created. It's a very frustrating experience.
Well, I will just go back to what was already said a couple of minutes ago. Don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. Like, it's just plain and simple. And something that I bring up time and again, I brought up on this show, I brought up on other shows. When you're at a comic convention, when you're at a panel, when you're at all that jazz, like, just be nice. Even if you don't agree with it, be nice about not agreeing with it. You can go up to somebody and have an actual conversation, and it'll go a long way. If you're hostile to begin with, then it's going to make you, for one thing, look like an asshole, and they're never going to want to talk to you again.
Well, this is the problem with media these days, though. Like, look at how many of comics media, right-leaning comics media is just dudes in their cars talking to a camera. They
I
have the
know.
sunglasses
Yeah.
and the hat on.
Or afraid of me.
Yeah.
I remember you. You know who you are. You know who you are.
We're not talking about that. We don't talk about them. They don't exist in this sphere.
I don't want to talk
frankly.
about it,
Yeah,
but I remember him, and I just remember the look of fear in his face.
I know. Yeah.
As if I was gonna do anything. Whatever, you little baby.
But to build upon even what I was just saying, Chris, the other part of that too is that if you're walking around a convention and you see a creator that you love, go up to them and tell them. You know, like even if it's 2 seconds, like that, then you at least have that in your memory banks. I got to meet blank and blank, and I got to meet them before they passed. You know, like it's.
I got to make Paul Cornell feel very uncomfortable.
I remember that. It was awesome.
I literally chased after him because I was like, we were doing that. We were on an escalator, and I think I might have been going down. And he was going up, and I was like, Ian, that's Paul Cornell. Ian, that's Paul Cornell. And I like ran up the escalator. I was like, dude, I love your comics. I love Captain Britain MI13. I love your Doctor Who episodes. You're really cool. I think his wife was with him. His wife was just laughing hysterically. I admit I came on strong, but at the same time, it was like I was really into his shit at the time. You know?
Yeah. No.
From Family of Blood. Come on.
My first New York Comic Con as in Podcast Alley. I remember I went for a walk for a little bit, and Jeff Johns happened to be at his table. He wasn't supposed to be signing, and I ran up to him, and I'm like, "Oh my God, Jeff, I love you. You're my second favorite writer." And I've met Jeff plenty of times since then. He used to do a lot of Midtown comic signings, and we've talked, and he's a great dude, and I love him, and bless him for dealing with like 22-year-old Raph, calling him second best to Grant Morrison.
It's fine.
41-year-old Raph actually agrees with 22-year-old Raph still, so I don't know what to tell you, Jeff.
I don't
sorry.
see the problem with it. I am the person who went up. I've gotten a bunch of books signed by Terry Pratchett over the years, and I literally up and I said, "Hey, I like your work. I mean, you're not my favorite writer, but you know, I think you're cool." And he goes, "Oh, I like that. A medium-sized fan." And I mean, I'm glad I had that moment. Like he was one of the most lovely creators I've ever interacted with.
Oh, you know? That's my new plan. Is I'm going to be a fantasy writer, and I'm either going to get a fantasy campaign setting or a comic out of it. That's the new plan now.
There you go.
And someday I will finish my novel.
Well,
You gonna write that novel?
Hey, look. I have 200 pages.
Hey, that's good.
I have a beginning, a middle, and the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it doesn't make any sense. I can't even decide on the name of one of the characters. You know, it's also supposed to be kind of scary, and it's not.
Like, I got a name for you. You ready? Joey Jojo Shabadoo.
You're a monster, Levinstein.
Glomulus the Reaper.
I was gonna say that. You know who's the real monster, though?
Who?
Mr. Levinstein.
Who?
It's Frankenstein.
Yes, that. It's pronounced Frankenstein. First of all, okay.
Yeah, since we brought that up earlier, I don't even think it's going to be on this recording, but the Netflix to Doom things. Yes, I'm changing the subject.
Well, hold on. Yeah, right before you do, I just want to make a couple of reading recommendations for Peter David, and then we can go ahead and move on. For one, Madrox, the miniseries, which then led to the X Factor relaunch. Both of those are amazing, but in particular, that Madrox miniseries, excellent stuff.
Yeah, by relaunch, he means 2004.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the 2004 relaunch, which is great in and of itself, but it started the whole X Factor investigations angle of Madrox, and it works excellent for a miniseries.
So fun little side note, since I've been reading a gazillion 80s X-Men comics, realizing that Jamie Madrox is not actually that old.
No, he's not.
I've always found Jamie and Layla to be super creepy in the comics, and that is Peter David. Peter David, please don't. Why did you do that? I don't know. We'll never know, and it was gross.
Yeah.
But realizing that he was also a teenager, so he's contemporaneous with the New Mutants.
Oh, okay.
He was probably like 18 at the oldest.
All right.
Because when he first appeared in Fantastic Four, I think it was an annual, he was supposed to be like 16.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes to live on Muir Island, and then, you know, he shows up sporadically. They invite him to join the X-Men, and he says no. But when he appeared in Fallen Angels, they definitely they refer to him and Siren as teenagers. So at the oldest, he's 19 at that time.
Okay.
So slightly less creepy, except for the fact that Layla Miller was supposed to be 14.
Meh.
Something like that, yeah.
I've already ranted about Kitty and Peter, and I have other inappropriate, couplings that have bugged the hell out of me. What else do you want to recommend? Ian?
Hulk the End, because that encompasses two of the best Incredible Hulk stories into one package. Both the actual Hulk the End story that Peter David wrote along with Dale Keown, but it also has the Maestro in it, and that is Future Imperfect is one of my favorite bits of Hulk that Peter David wrote, where he was Smart Hulk at that point. Smart Hulk meets a future version of the Hulk that has basically become the ruler of the world. And he has to deal with that, decide if there's any way to stop that from happening, and also just straight up defeat the Maestro and get himself back to where he's supposed to belong. So that's highly recommended. Obviously, his Young Justice stuff. And I'll also just throw out there's tons of visionaries that have come out over the years with Peter David. So like the X Factor visionaries for his early stuff, Incredible Hulk visionaries for the Gray Hulk stuff. You're bound to find some really good Peter David stuff.
And if you've got Marvel Unlimited, you can search by creator, so that's easy enough.
Yep.
I will make my Peter David recommendations will be novels, I guess. We've already brought up Star Trek novels. If you had to read one and nothing else, I think I would recommend Q Squared. That's with Q and Trelane, who was a character from the original series that was not originally conceived as a Q, but everybody just retroactively decided was a Q, and this kind of, circles the square, as they call it. The other book, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, is Nightlife, which is like a King Arthur in modern times, and I don't mean just like, oh, he's riding a horse through Times Square. It's like a dude literally trying to make a difference in today's media saturated industrial society.
Nice.
Again, I might be fuzzy on this. I could swear he runs for mayor or something like that. And it's been 20 years. I'm my brain is Swiss cheese now. I'm turned into Sam Beckett in Quantum Leap. I have Swiss cheese brain.
It's fine. Raph, you got any recommendations?
For all the Star Trek fans, for sure, I would say New Frontier. It's a great series, and there's a comic series that kind of wraps everything up at the end.
Yep.
And comics wise, Supergirl. That was actually Supergirl may have been the first stuff of his I've read in DC, because it came out. It was before Young Justice. And Young Justice for sure. I love Young Justice.
Yeah.
And for Marvel, I mean, you already mentioned the Hulk. That's a great. Oh, you know what? I'll go with the Gray Hulk run.
No, there you go. Yeah, and
before the Maestro.
And for that matter, if you're gonna read the Supergirl stuff, in a way, Fallen Angel is the spiritual successor to what he worked on with Supergirl. It was originally under the DC umbrella, and they were strongly hinting that this was Matrix Supergirl. Kind of reborn in one way or another, but they never really got there because
the idea was that because that one of the problems, as you already mentioned, is that when you are writing for a large company, a large shared universe, is that stories you envision don't always finish.
Yes.
So Peter David, I will say that maybe that's his tenacity, a sign of his tenacity, is to try to continue that story no matter what. Taking it to different companies. Just having the same character, appear in different versions, like a multiverse, like the Peter David multiverse.
Yeah, and even going back to X Factor, he wrote a story with Todd Nauck in the last couple of years under the X-Men Legends banner, which filled in a gap in X Factor for a story he never got to tell. That he got to write as part of that X-Men Legends series that was doing exactly that. It's telling stories that had never been told. Like, for instance, the third Summers brother that we all wanted. Okay?
What, Extreme?
Damn
Extreme.
Skippy. Damn
Extreme
Skippy.
X-Men.
We love... Okay, brief interlude here.
Yes.
I don't hate Extreme. I get why people hate Extreme.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's that one issue of X-Men where he meets Scott's grandparents.
Oh, yeah,
it's the sweetest, most lovely issue, and it actually made me kind of hype for the theory that he was the third Summers brother. Technically, the theory wasn't even that he was the Summers brother. He was Scott and Alex's brother through their mom.
Yes.
So he's not even really a Summers. And I'm fine. And there is no reason why that still can't be canon.
Well, now it is. X-Men Legends is canon. So them introducing it in X-Men Legends officially made it canon, and Nicieza got to write the stories, so that makes it even better.
I wasn't sure if Legends was canon. Does that mean in 20 years we'll get the end of Jonathan Hickman's X-Men?
That's highly possible. What he's working on right now was actually, at least the name of the series was what his ending to the X-Men was originally going to be called. But it's not the story. He basically jettisoned that and put it to the side. But yeah, give him 20 years, and then Hickman will go ahead and write what he's gonna do.
I have definitely noticed, as we get older, one of the things that's kind of almost comforting is that the universe does have a moral arc that it does seem to reach towards. To see things come back around, to see like people get recognized, or historical wrongs get made right. I know right now that's hard to believe.
And later this episode, I'll be talking about Hatush. So that's it.
I was looking through his work. He's the creator of Miguel O'Hara.
Oh yeah,
I completely forgot about Spider-Man 2099.
That's one of the things that came up is people pointed out that there's this freaking Spider-Verse movies, making gangbusters, but he's not getting recognized for the work. But I'm going to be a little mean, a little fair here. A lot of people are not getting recognized for their work in those movies.
Yes.
We know that as beautiful as Across the Spider-Verse is, it was a human rights abuse.
Oh, yeah.
So terrible.
Yep.
So I'm like, as much as I wish Peter David could have died under better circumstances, there is so much wrong with that situation.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And be waiting in a long line.
That's also why, we haven't gotten the new Spider-Verse movie yet, because remember, they were originally saying that was supposed to come out a year after the last one came out, and everybody was like, that's impossible. Like, no, you're gonna work them to the bone. They haven't even started yet. Are you kidding me? And all those stories came out, and now it's actually taking them a normal human amount of time to make a movie, and now it's set to be released, I think, next year, if I remember correctly. So we will get the third movie eventually, just not in a human rights abuse style of production.
Yeah, I mean, I want it to happen, but I want everyone treated well.
Yeah. So let's move on to Tudum, since I
brought it up.
Yeah.
So I hadn't watched it until before this recording, mostly because I just had let YouTube do its thing, and then it was like, oh, you haven't watched Frankenstein trailer yet. I am so happy.
Yeah.
Ever since I read the book, like most people, let's be honest, most people have never read the book. We have seen the movies. We are, I automatically know if someone has seen the movies but not read the book if they say Dr. Frankenstein was the real monster. And I will say, no, I'm pretty sure the monster was the real monster.
Yes.
I haven't read it in 25, 6 years. It was high school. It's been a very, I don't know, maybe I read it during college. It's still been over 2 decades.
But that despite all of
he's a piece of shit.
They are both pieces of shit. Let's get that out there.
No one looks good.
Oh yeah.
The doctor's cruel. The monster's cruel. Nah, it's all bad.
Because here's the thing. As I got into arguments with people about this, they're like, well, he mistreated the monster. And I said his mistreatment was he built the monster, which was already a horrible idea. He's freaking robbing bodies. He's working himself to the bone, stitching people together. And it comes to life. He looks at it and goes, nope. And leaves the room.
Well, and by the way, I just finished What We Do in the Shadows, so this has been on my mind.
He was not happy with it. He was just like, it was very, Arrested Development. He's like, this was a terrible idea. I've made a terrible mistake. And he walks out of the room and he goes and takes a little nap that lasts for like 4 days. And when he wakes up, there's the monster just looking at him.
Hi.
And then he goes back to sleep. Yeah, basically, hi. And then he goes back to sleep and he wakes up, the monster's gone. And he's just like, oh, maybe I dreamed the whole thing.
This just in, he did not.
And then begins the terror campaign, where, again, it drives me nuts when people try to say the monster is not culpable. I'm like, the monster literally murders his Victor's little brother, frames the nanny for it. That is not an impulsive action. That is not something you casually do because you're pissed off at your parents. That is premeditated murder. And like again, yeah, that's why I'm looking forward to this movie because it's going to acknowledge they're all terrible. They're all terrible people.
I also like that when you go to IMDb and you look at writers, it says Mary Shelley, Guillermo del Toro. You know, I mean, obviously they have to, but like, it's just so funny to think of like, yeah, Mary Shelley wrote this movie. Like, no, she wrote Frankenstein.
Well, it's kind of interesting because there's actually two versions of Frankenstein. She actually rewrote sections of it, which might be kind of why I get into arguments with people who have read the book because we've read different versions of it.
Right.
And the version I read, the monster's purely piece of shit. But
that's what I remember.
Yeah, and the thing is, it got adapted into a play without her input, and that made a lot of changes to the story.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when it got adapted into a movie, they changed the story completely, and they didn't have to credit her at all because it was public domain by then. So, honestly, we know it's really funny, and they're trying to point out that, yes, Guillermo del Toro did not write this story, but it's nice to see an adaptation where it's actually true.
Yeah, that's
a
true.
true adaptation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
as opposed to the one with the girl, and then I didn't know about that being not part of the original until I read the original, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
Can we also talk about the cast of this movie at least just a little bit here? That Jacob Elordi is playing the monster, Oscar Isaac is playing Dr. Frankenstein, Mia Goth is in this movie as a character named Elizabeth, his wife, Christoph Waltz as Harlander. Ralph Ineson is in this movie as Professor Krempy, David Bradley, Charles Dance, Bern Gorman, Lars Nicholson. Like, this is a damn fine cast right here. Like, this is peak.
I mean, I think it's going to be good, but even if it wasn't, this is one of those movies that exist for the actors to have fun.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I did not like Nightmare Alley, but I recognize it as a work that exists because Guillermo del Toro loved the original Nightmare Alley and wanted to work with these actors, and these actors wanted to work with him. And you can tell everyone on that set is having the time of their lives. It's just a miserable movie. It's not a bad movie. It's just not. It's not something I really want to watch. I regret watching it the first time.
Oof.
It's miserable.
I didn't mind it. I actually really enjoyed it, but it's not one of my favorites of his. Definitely.
Yeah, it's just it's a tale of misery. It's just pure unadulterated misery from beginning to end. And like, there's a place for those movies, and it's not in my living room.
Yep. The other two things of note that came out of the Tudum by Netflix. Wake Up, Dead Man. A Knives Out mystery will be coming out on December 12th with again talk about a cast like Josh O'Connor, Glenn Close, Josh Brolin, Mila Kunis, Jeremy Renner, Kerry Washington, Andrew Scott, Taylor Spinney, Daryl McCormick. Yes, thank you, Haley Spinney.
Haley.
Yeah, Haley.
There's a Haley Spinney too?
Or Kaylee. Kaylee.
What's the first?
I'm sorry.
I was going to say Kaylee.
Yeah.
Caile. I know the actress.
I'm looking at the old timey font, and that's what's getting me. So sorry. You're right. Kaylee Spinney, Daryl McCormick, and Thomas Hayden Church.
And Kentucky Fried James Bond.
Damn right.
It is so irritating that they have to call it a Knives Out mystery when it's really a
Benoit Blanc mystery.
Yeah, it's a Benoit Blanc movie. Yeah.
And the thing is, you would think by the third movie, people would know the character, but they still don't have any confidence in that name brand.
Well, that's also
name yet.
Yeah, well, that's also because they've also now done it once, so they're going to continue to do it. You know, like they could have James Bonded this with the actual literal former James Bond, Daniel Craig, and named it after the character Benoit Blanc, but they did not.
The name's Blanc.
Yep.
Eventually, we will get a box set, and it will say Benoit Blanc. And
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
I will buy that box set.
And the other thing that I definitely wanted to bring up, and I'm sure, Chris, you probably have thoughts.
Are we talking about One Piece?
Yep, One Piece. Tony Chopper.
So I will say the promotional clip was pure cringe.
Oh my God, yes.
But I have nothing to complain about in terms of the animation, the design, or the acting.
I think so too.
It's just a cringe clip.
Yeah.
You know, and what broke my freaking heart was when they were like, "Oh, coming 2026." I'm like, 3 years
I know.
after season one.
Yeah.
This is how you know they are not even gonna get close to adapting. I wasn't expecting them to adapt the whole story, but it's going to be just barely anything. I think this show is gonna tap out at like 3 seasons.
I hope
We
not.
won't be alive if they try to finish the story. By the time they finish that story, if they do finish it, we will be long gone. We will be dust.
for very
It'll be 3013.
Yes.
for very
Ian
different.
will be around to podcast.
I'm sure I will. Yes, but I mean, I for very different reasons, Netflix is only giving us 2 seasons worth of Sandman, but that's for very different reasons. And they swear it was that way to begin with. It wasn't going to be different in any way, shape, or form. Yada yada yada. But Netflix is also known for this shit where they start something and then they have to rush it because they give up on it and then only give like a certain amount of seasons.
So what you're making me think of right now, it's the same BS they said about Doctor Who.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I guess we can tie these together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So half the internet's been spoiled already on Doctor Who. I'm not even up to date on Doctor Who, and I got spoiled just by logging on to the freaking internet.
I haven't watched this season. I watched the Christmas special. That's the last thing I saw.
Yeah, I watched one episode of this season over at Chris's because it was the Eurovision episode, and we watched it after Eurovision, and
it was a good episode.
It was an excellent episode.
Yeah. Let me just say, I did not expect them to go this hard on Moroccan oil. The number of reviews I have seen of the was it the name of the episode was the Interstellar Song Contest. Interstellar Song Contest.
Yeah.
And for those who don't watch Doctor Who or whatever, basically, the plot of the episode is that the Doctor and his companion end up in this arena at the same time as the Interstellar Song Contest. So they decide to stick around, and some terrorists kind of take over the song contest, and they're going to kill everybody in the arena and kill everybody who's watching the show because of their complicity. Because the fact is, one of the major sponsors. I'm spoiling the whole episode. Does anyone really care?
I'll watch it.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
like a month from now,
but basically, the reason the terrorists want to do this is because the major sponsor of the song contest is Poppy Honey, this company that makes like honey scented hair care. I don't even remember, but just flavor. It makes flavoring, if I remember correctly. And the thing is, the major sponsor of the Eurovision Song Contest is Moroccan oil. So it was damn. And then a week later, we get some of the shittiest Doctor Who I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, which okay, so spoilers now for a season of Doctor Who that I have not even finished. But again, because of the internet, I know what happened. People were already theorizing. There have been articles written on whether or not this is all being done to try to get Disney to renew the show, which is a possibility. But at the end of the season, the Doctor regenerates and regenerates into Billie Piper. And, we all know Billie Piper is a previous companion of the Doctor, Doctors 9 and 10. And
the Bad Wolf.
And the Bad Wolf. Yeah. Back in the anniversary special, when talking to the librarian, the curator or whatever, one of the lines that was spoken at one point is, you'll have many faces, and you might even revisit a few from time to time. People are trying to say, oh, well, that telegraphed that this was going to wind up happening, not just with David Tennant, but also with Billy eventually. But this was not originally in the cards. There was an entire, unless they filmed it to get people off the scent, there was an entire ending to the episode that was filmed and canned. There was an actor that was even cast as the companion's father that is not in the episode, but he was being promoted as if he was in the episode because he was in scenes that were later cut. There's a whole dance scene that Disney Plus featured in its key art for this episode that's just straight up not in it because it was supposed to be from the celebratory ending of the finale. And you could say, oh, well, maybe they filmed that all to try to get us off the scent. Like, no, this seems like it was
too much.
It was very much of a rush job.
Even without all this stuff that was filmed and not used, the surest side, like them trying to say that Ncuti Gatwa was only going to last 2 seasons, is such horse crap because they never resolved the Rogue storyline. Like, they made a big deal out of the fact that he had the first like gay kiss, gay romance for the Doctor.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the episodes, Jonathan Groff, the guy, gets trapped in like, the hell dimension or whatever it is. And he just says, find me. So this is clearly meant to be set up for a longer storyline where eventually maybe he would they'll track him down. And the thing is, they can revisit that storyline, but it no longer carries the weight because it's not the same actor. And the thing is, they might not revisit the storyline because usually with Doctor Who, they don't. Once the Doctor moves on, everything, all the baggage with that Doctor gets left behind. Yeah. It's very rare.
Unless you're River. Like, that's it. Like, River.
There's the Tennant's... Is it Tennant's wife who was in... who was the Doctor's daughter?
Yes.
When she actually is a Doctor's daughter?
I know, yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, that's one of my favorite Doctor Who things is the fact that David Tennant married, what is her name? Gloria? Why am I blanking on this?
Hold on 1 second. I'll have it in 2 seconds. Georgia.
I knew it began with a G. Yeah. My favorite thing, they are the like most wholesome family. It's like the sweetest thing I've ever seen because the thing is she had a kid when she was a teenager and David Tennant adopted that kid, basically became his dad in legal title as well as just being there for the kid. Yeah. And now that's Ty Tennant, who was on House of the Dragon as the younger version of Aemond. So like good for him. And there was a photo, if you want to Google it, there's like because there's an old photo of David Tennant at some con and Peter Davidson is standing behind him, Peter Davidson being the father of Georgia Tennant. And he's got a sign that says he's not so great.
Yeah,
and then there's a photo that I saw a few years ago of Ty Tennant at a convention, and David Tennant standing behind him with a sign that says he's not so great. They are the greatest family. Like that is like God. So sweet and lovely, and now it's just reminding me why I love Doctor Who. After this fucking shit show, this was a terrible episode.
Yeah, I found that he's not that special.
Yeah, he's not that special. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, but and also, I mean, there's another thing that happens in the season. This I will not actually spoil for your sake, Raph, because it's very much Doctor Who lore. And they brought it up in the Eurovision episode, and it was being hinted at something that was definitely going to wind up needing to be explored further one way or the other. And from what I am aware, at the end of this particular season, it is not brought up at all. So
they kicked us on the balls with that one.
Yeah.
Okay,
I know exactly what you're talking about, and they did not.
Yeah.
They
a yes or no will suffice, but do they deal with the neighbor that like?
Yes, they
knows
do.
Everything
they do.
Okay,
they
great.
do. Yes,
that's one I.
Yeah.
Because if they don't deal with
Mrs. Flood.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be really disappointing. If they deal with Mrs. Flood.
And Mrs. Flood will make you happy as a Whovian, Raph, like where they went with that is, but that's not what I'm talking about that they brought up that they did that didn't follow up on.
It is very clear that they did some reshoots and brought in this fan wank because as lovely as Billie Piper is as a person and people like the character of Rose, I'm not a Rose Tyler fan. I mean, I know she's not playing Rose Tyler, but let's be honest, this is all building on that nostalgia, and I am just so tired of fan service because, just people don't know how to do it anymore.
Well, and also, here's the question: what if Disney Plus doesn't pick it up? And because the entire reason why these last 2 seasons of Doctor Who were season and a half, because the Tennant specials are included in the Disney Plus plan, but they're going to need to find funding elsewhere because clearly BBC did not have the funding to do this on their own anymore. So whether Max comes in and gets the rights back to Doctor Who like they once had, because a bunch of other seasons are still on Max to this day, it'd be very interesting to see where the funding's going to come from.
Raph, what's up?
When before the season premiered like a couple months ago, there was this whole like thing about will Disney renew Doctor Who, and I think in an interview Russell T said that they would just go back to like doing it the old way, like they did his original run.
You mean the low budget puppetry way?
Super low budget. The plunger is the most deadly weapon in the universe. classic Doctor Who way, which I can appreciate that he said that, but realistically, in 2025, I don't think, especially younger fans, newer fans, I don't think they're going to accept that. After we got like a year and a half of like, or and the specials of like super high quality CG and like really well done sets, and you're not gonna these kids are not gonna accept plungers and really cheap graphics and like clearly obvious sets. I don't think, at least.
I think if you're an old school Doctor Who fan, you'll probably be fine. I think you're right that a lot of people are going to look at it and judge it if it looks lower quality. Because I don't think we're going to go back to plungers.
No.
I mean, CG is cheap enough, but the CG might look really bad. I am more of the thing. Still think if BBC doesn't have that much money right now, I do think it might go into a fallow period again. And we're going to have a gap, which may or may not be for the best.
It might be for the best at this point. It all depends on where they're going to go next on this, but that they're at least going to have some sort of special, at least, to wrap up any dangling plot lines that are just sitting there. Because if we go 6 years without resolution on Billy Piper or any of this other stuff, that ain't going to be good for the fandom either. So there'll have to be some sort of resolution.
And I don't want to get mad at Disney, because I know Disney, like, their budget is out of whack right now. Because they said they spent $600 million on Andor, I think it was.
Yes, they did.
Crazy ass number.
Yeah.
And mind you, I'll be honest, I don't even know where the budget goes half the time on those shows. Like when they said that Acolyte was like $200 million, for the one season. Yeah. That's just it. It's like, what? Did you build the sets out of cocaine?
Like did you secretly discover like FTL Drive and you're actually going to other planets to film this? What the fuck?
Wait. Because
I got it. Do you see my set? It's made of money.
This is the thing. And someone made a very good point. They said, there's a reason a lot of fan films are shot in the woods.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's cheap.
Yeah.
And Acolyte, a big chunk of the Acolyte was in the woods. And what was it in the woods was on the beach. Why does this cost $200 million? Oh, because we had 2 shots in the Jedi Temple and we hired the dude from freaking Parasite. Like, no, I don't even remember his name. That's how much he's worth to you.
I also want to quickly point out that those in the audience for when Ncuti was on Graham Norton, he straight up promoted season 3 and it got cut from the episode. Apparently those in the audience said they discussed season 3. They discussed how he was looking forward to coming back. I think he even dropped a line along the lines of like, if I leave without fighting the Daleks, this is going to be crazy. And he didn't. So again, unless he's shocking everybody and he's still going to wind up coming back in one way or the other, this was not planned and this was basically just a pivot.
Yeah.
So
also, before anyone gets mad, I realize I said Parasite and I actually mean the guy from Squid Game.
Well, there you
go. Because I don't know anything about
Yes.
Korean actors. I'm racist.
Oh no, you made a mistake and you owned up to it. That's it.
Yeah, I was just like, that doesn't seem right. Wait, what was he in? And I had to look him up. Lee Jong Jae.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't watched a Star Wars show to completion since Andor season 1, unless there's a season of Mandalorian that came after that.
I'm still I think I'm still on Mando season 2, to be honest with you.
I'm up to date on Mando. I watched Book of Boba Fett and I watched Andor season 1. That's all I need to watch Ahsoka. I need to watch.
They're burning us out.
Oh yeah,
they're burning us out on
It's just too. Well, like I think that the ideal is like for Star Wars, I think less is more. But for Star Trek, I think 3 shows would be fine.
Yes.
Like 36 to 40 weeks of Star Trek I would be happy with.
Well, but also,
especially if I got 117 seasons of Lower Decks.
Well, we ain't getting that, unfortunately. No. But part of me feels like the way that they pace that is why I'm okay with the way that Paramount is doing Star Trek. That there is at least a bit of a break in between the seasons, that they're completely different styles, completely different settings, some animated, some not, yada, yada, yada. With the combination of Marvel and Star Wars coming out of Disney Plus, I find it incredibly hard to continue to just be straight up caught up on anything, because I feel like before I get a chance to be caught up, there's something new. And they're realizing that. That's why they're slowing down production, both for Marvel and for Star Wars on a lot of the properties that they're doing, because
when the
it's
stuff
time.
started getting crappier, like Secret Invasion was terrible.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Like, I know
What
we
a
can,
waste.
yeah, we can talk about how COVID screwed up a lot of things, but Secret Invasion, that was what you call a forced error, a word I've been using a lot this week, but that was very forced and unnecessary, completely dropping the ball and ruining one of my favorite MCU moments of all time. So I'm just going to be sad about that.
Not to mention, like, you've destroyed, like, we never got a Kree Skrull war on screen. We never got like any sort of, like, you could have told a really complex story with the Skrulls, which I think Secret Invasion tried to do.
They did, yeah.
And also you threw away the Super Skrull. You just threw away the. No, I'm not saying this because, like, I don't like Daenerys as a Super Skrull.
Yeah, Emilia Clarke.
Emilia Clarke. Are you ever going to use Emilia Clarke again?
No, you're not.
She's not going to come back, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she's not going to come back. So that character's basically dead.
Well, they could easily wind up doing something else, Super Skrull.
I mean, I guess you could recast and be like, "Oh, this is my new face. I like it more."
No, or just there could be a different Super Skrull. Like, now that we're introducing the Fantastic Four, however they're going to wind up doing it, they could very easily wind up pivoting and be like paying no attention to the man behind the counter. Or curtain,
which is
with Secret Invasion, and just literally never mention it again.
They are. I mean, we know they're cowards, though, because, like, one of the problems we've talked about in previous episodes is the fact that, like, with Jonathan Majors completely skunking their plan, but it didn't have to be skunked. They could have just recast, and they didn't want to.
Yeah,
there is definitely
so weird.
There is such a strain, a strain of cowardice going on in Marvel right now. So, I don't really have much to add to that. It's just like, again, we've talked about that. There's no reason why they had to drop the ball as badly as they did. And even, is Emilia Clarke just not want to do it anymore? Or
I don't know.
It's not like she's exactly busy. One thing, and I've been thinking about this week in terms of us. So, me and Ian both saw Mission Impossible Final Reckoning this week, and I rewatched all of the Mission Impossible movies before this. Like, I actually had bought a ticket for day of release, and then I was like, this doesn't feel right, so I actually canceled it and just watched all the movies first. But we're talking about Jeremy Renner, and thinking about, like, how Jeremy Renner, I actually really like him when he's not Hawkeye, or Hawkeye, as Ian will correct me here. And I feel like that, like, also with, like, Emilia Clarke, is, again, I don't think she's busy, because she has the same problem a lot of the Marvel actors do. Is like, you were in this big franchise, and then nobody's hiring you to do anything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they also tried to pay Jeremy Renner way less to come back as Hawkeye, which is ridiculous. And I'm still like, what the hell?
From what I understand, they don't want to do as much TV. And so they purposely lowballed him so that they won't have to do season 2 of Hawkeye, because they want to cut down on projects.
Then how about you just don't do it and you don't insult the guy? Like, come on.
That's true. The other thing is, I mean, with Emilia Clarke, is she did have an opportunity at a major franchise that also completely tanked in Terminator Genisys.
Yeah.
Also, I just found an article on IMDb. Emilia Clarke will get a shot at redemption with the return as Gaia after the worst Marvel show of all time, MCU report. I don't know. This is from, like, January of this year. I don't know if it's actually means anything. So maybe she is under contract for one more
but
I hope so.
I mean,
so that they can do something with the goddamn character.
There is no reason not to, except unless there was, like, a fight or whatever. Because I don't think she's, again, it's the beggars can't be choosers. She's not exactly, super famous.
Maybe it'll come out before the Eternal sequel that's never happening. It's all.
There are a lot of Game of Thrones actors in Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Well, all right. Let's at least just talk about something that clearly Marvel did right that was announced this week. And what I'm talking about is, of course, Batman Deadpool #1. Written by Grant Morrison with artwork by Dan Mora. The two characters that we were like, why have they not crossed over before? said no one ever. But anyway, either way, this looks like it should be fun. It's Grant Morrison returning to Batman. I don't think Grant Morrison has ever worked on Deadpool before, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to what his Deadpool is like.
Yeah,
It's gonna be super gay.
probably.
If it's not super gay, I'm gonna be disappointed in Grant Morrison.
That's fine.
Because you think they would be like attracted to the fact that Deadpool just basically kills everything and loves everything at the same time.
This is also not the only one shot crossover thing that's going to wind up happening. Obviously, there are two issues of this. One is Batman Deadpool #1 published by DC Comics. And then there's Deadpool Batman published by Marvel Comics. One's coming out in November. One's coming out in September. I love that because I went to DC site. They named the one coming out in November 1st and the one coming out in September 2nd. So hilarious. Good job there, DC. But
I wonder why.
There supposedly are going to be other crossovers happening, and this is the first time Marvel and DC have collaborated on new stuff since the Access era. Like,
no, the last thing is JLA Avengers, I think. Which is 2003.
You're right. JLA Avengers. You're right. Yeah, that did happen afterwards. Oh yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, Busiek and Perez. Like, you can't get better than that. But
Superman holding Cap's shield and Thor's hammer, and he's oh my god, I love that image so much.
You want me to be? I'm gonna be really cynical and bitter right now.
Yeah.
So the money that went to the lawyers who were in the room when they hammered out the rights to get through this Batman Deadpool, that is money that is not going to creators who are going to die penniless.
So true.
Like, as much as we love, I'm a Debbie Downer right now. Like, I know we love these things, but the fact is we are dealing with subsidiaries of two of the largest entertainment companies in the world. Yeah, the what one lawyer in that room is paid would have paid like Peter David's medical bills.
Oh, I know.
Now I'm gonna go be depressed. Sorry, guys. Sorry, everyone.
Oh my God! Wow! Should I find the SNL Debbie Downer music to play behind you?
I can just go wah wah.
Depression strikes us in weird ways, right? So
yes.
But I mean, the thing is that is part of the bargain when you. This is the problem with corporations owning everything, right? But without getting deeply into politics, I'm excited. I'm intrigued in this crossover. I hope it's good. I hope it does well. I hope it tells a original enough story that it's actually interesting. And
I'm sure it's going to be good.
Hey, we're crossing over to crossover. But it's Grant Morrison, and like I said before, I will insult Jeff Johns to worship Grant Morrison. I love Grant.
Yeah.
Grant is like my idol when it comes to like what he's what I wanted. Like, they are wondering why I wanted to be when I grew up. And I've grown up and I'm not them, and it's fine. And I got to deal with that failure. But
he says expect fourth wall busting mayhem, owls, blood, blades, and at least one giant typewriter.
So what you're saying is this is the perfect comic to buy my 4-year-old niece.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, buy 4 of them. Go ahead, just buy 4 of them. Yeah.
She thinks Thundercats are cool. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we are the generation that watched, like Terminator when we were like way too young to.
Mm-hmm.
Or
RoboCop.
I think RoboCop was my first R-rated movie in a theater. I was 6. So, yeah.
Oh, and you know what?
It
Hold on. Go ahead.
At home, I think.
Yeah. I needed to bring this up one more time here. I know that's the new Batman logo and everything, but can I just comment for a moment on how much I hate that the M is bigger than every other letter because they had to fill the empty space in the bat? Like,
yes,
it is throwing me off significantly. It really is.
It's off center.
I don't mind it. What I'm more bothered by is the N. Because the N is wider than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. Like, because you look at the bottom of the N where the two. I don't even know if there's the technical terms for parts of letters, but the straight and the slanty come together and it's like super wide and it looks just freaking weird. And
yeah,
I hate you for making me overanalyze that. I think it's a cool logo. I haven't read DC in ages. I mean, I read what I get from the library. I like that logo a lot.
It is kind of like a new version of the 70s logo in some ways, because didn't that one have like a really big Batman on top of a bat? If I'm remembering correctly, Raph, like around the time of like the team ups, like the DC team ups and stuff like that.
It was this one. I don't. I don't know how to.
Hold on. I'll give you sharing rights real quick. 1 second.
Yeah.
There we go.
Ian's controls this Zoom call with an iron fist.
Go ahead.
And not Power Man. That's a little racist of you.
Look, man. Where's my money, honey? That's all.
All right, hold on. Let me.
It's the second episode I brought that up. Jeez.
Sharing.
Now, you see, you do realize I have to bring up my recent discoveries from my reread of all of X-Men crap.
Yeah, there you go. That's the screen. This is the 70s version, which is not as.
I'm not seeing it, by the way. I'm not seeing it.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Oh, because I haven't hit share yet.
There you go. That's why. There you go. And now you hit share, and I will see it in just a moment. Here we go. Yep.
So this is the TV series one, and then this is the 70s one.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yes. Yeah, you're right.
I actually like the TV series one a lot more.
Oh yeah,
because the bat has a head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I like that the letters fit into the cape, but I think like that's fine for a cheesy TV show. But if you want something more stylish, you want to make those letters a little more uniform.
Yeah,
which is what this logo the logo we were looking at on the previous screen, the current logo.
The new logo.
Yeah, the new logo.
The new old same logo different. Yes,
the tidier logo.
The tidier, yeah.
Yeah, I do like that about the current logo. The newer logo is that it integrates everything a little better.
Yeah.
Yet sacrifices uniformity for it.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like we can do a whole episode about font, about logos and stuff. Because again, reading old comics, it's always fun when you get to the issue where they use the logo you're familiar with, and to realize like X-Men have been using the logo we know from like the 80s and the 90s and stuff since the 60s.
Oh yeah,
like from the original run. And then of course, I'm reading X Factor, and I finally get to the issue with the first not shitty X Factor logo. And it's
oh yeah, yep.
Some of these logos were very bad.
Oh my god, yes.
I mean, mind you, X Factor was just very bad for a while.
Yeah, I dig the original X-Men logo, but the newer one with the slanted X-Men that we're all used to is definitely better than the original, even if the original
it lasted for 30 years. It is us. We've talked about the DC logo over the years. The fact that they keep going back to the bullet is a sign that it's a good logo. Like we said, what Milton Glaser.
Yep.
I said, you do not. If Milton Glaser designs something for you, guess what? You never get to replace it. You don't.
You try and you fail.
Exactly.
Yeah, you try to say, oh, well, it's old. Nope, sorry, you don't have the right. Like, if I were a dictator and controlled this country, that would be the law I was passing. I don't care about, I'm not going to keep kids out of sports, but I am going to keep you from changing perfectly good logos.
Job well done. I think that your priorities are strong here, and I completely support them.
I just want my country to not be ugly.
I will shed genuine tears if I see a golden triangle on a Superman book.
Oh my God! Yeah, if we went back to the numbered, which they're putting out. I mean, we know from previews, Raph, that they're putting out collections of that. I
know, but if for some reason they decide to make all the current Superman books a cohesive, story from book to book, I will, and they decide to denote that somehow on the cover, I will shed tears.
It's possible we might get there. Mark Wade's bringing stuff back.
If something happens to Superman and his powers don't stop working and he has to reignite them somehow, and he does, but with disastrous results, and he turns a different shade of color, I will be inconsolable with joy for so long that you don't. And if James Gunn tells me Superman 2 is called The Final Night, I will scream my head off.
Well, you know what? Get out.
All right, that's good, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Anyway, you can find me at Raph.
No, not yet.
I feel like I feel like that's our white whale at this point is Final Night.
Oh my God, I love Final Night.
Which I know Ian had never read Final Night. You borrowed my book for it.
Yeah.
And I convert people over to the cause of Final Night.
I love Final Night.
I love this 90s story. And I love that. I'm like, no, Final Night. Why is Final Night not freaking adapted. I'm
Absolutely.
so mad. I'm so mad.
But
Yeah, Final Night gave us the greatest Superman ever. I can't hate that.
while we're talking, team ups and stuff like that, I did want to bring up in passing. We're releasing kind of like most of our conversation on it straight to the Patreon, but we are going to have further conversation on it here at least a little bit. It was announced earlier today as we're recording this that Marvel has a return to the fighting game genre and the tag team fighting team genre, and that is Marvel Token Fighting Souls, and it's being put out by the same guys who made Dragon Ball FighterZ Arc System Works, and they've apparently been working on this since COVID, basically. And they were told to go nuts, make a fighting game in your own style. And, as long as it works and it looks like something unique and different, then we're going to be behind it. And that's essentially what they did. And it's going to be a 4-on-4 fighter. Not even 2-on-2, 4-on-4. You get to pick 4 different characters, and you can then set them up any way you want. If you want one character to be super strong and the other 3 to just be assist characters, you could do that. If you want 2 of them to be strong and then have 2 assists, you could do that. Or you could have all 4 of them on your team, and they'll be a little bit weaker in comparison.
So now that you're explaining that,
yeah.
Now, my number one question is, do you get bonuses for building teams that are thematically appropriate?
Ooh, I hope so. I really, really hope so.
Listen,
It's like, I want to do classic Avengers. I want to do a team that's all freaking spider characters.
Ooh,
I
yes.
want to do a team that's just mutants. Yeah, that's what I want to do. What's up, Raph?
the only thing I really care about is if a certain thing shows up, and that's Infinity Proton Cannon.
Well, you ain't gonna see that because it's not Capcom. You might get something similar,
Worst game ever.
but it's
Unless there's Darkhawk in this, worst game ever.
you might get him. You might get him. Who knows? But
Okay.
What I will say though is that people were telegraphing that we were going to get a new Marvel vs. Capcom because the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection came out. No one expected that to happen because that was a whole rigmarole of getting the rights back for Capcom and everything, and that Capcom is not putting out the next fighting game for Marvel is a big surprise. But I'm really interested to see how this is going to play. And it's PlayStation exclusive. Yes, it's also available on PC, but there is no Xbox version of this planned as of now. Nor is there a Switch 2 version as of now, unless they announce it.
It's kind of, mind you, Sony's the one that's been locking companies down. The fact that they have their own Spider-Man games puts them up ahead. Like, if you are Marvel and you need to negotiate for a new video game, like, it makes more sense to go with Sony at this point.
Oh, yeah.
They probably have each other on speed dial, or whatever the modern equivalent thereof. They're in the little grid at the top of your cell phone, like the people you call most.
Yeah.
So like Marvel and Sony are BFF at this point. That doesn't surprise me, especially since like Xbox, like Microsoft is really backing down a lot from people have already been talking about how this is possibly the last console generation. Like Xbox,
Everything's an Xbox.
yeah, that's just it.
now.
Everything's an Xbox. They're not like really pushing Xbox as like a piece of hardware anymore. It's a software suite. It's an experience. It's the live game service and all that. The Game Pass. I'm blanking on a lot of things right now.
Yeah.
But and then of course with the Switch. Oh, you know what? I just want to say, yeah, we by the time you guys hear this, the Switch 2 will probably be out. Yes. I don't know how many people are actually going to get one.
Not me.
This is the weirdest. This is I've seen several people say this. I have never felt less new console coming like that, ever in my life.
I feel you. I was really interested in the Switch 2 when I saw it. I was way less interested when I saw the price. There's an excellent Did You Know Gaming video that just came out on the history of pricing with Nintendo and how when they've gone high price new features and try to like match the specs of their competitors, that's when they failed.
That is not what Nintendo is known for.
Yeah,
I'm forgetting. Was it in one of the videos you watched, Ian? Like they mentioned, it might have been Gunpei Yokoi, who he's one of the people at Nintendo who believed in doing more with less.
Yeah.
Like that's always been Nintendo's key to success. The reason they're able to sell their console so cheap is that they are using old parts. They are not using the latest and greatest. They're using old parts, which are cheaper to get, and they're easier to develop for. You're not trying to figure new stuff out.
I think even the Switch 2 is only up to par with like PS4 level graphics.
And yet you're still going to spend as much on it as the lowest end Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of nutty.
I've heard like early PS5 is as high quality as you're going to get. This is the first Nintendo system to do 4K. It has the mouse feature that they're really trying to hype up for certain games and everything. It's just I'm getting very strong Wii U vibes off of this launch, and I hope I'm wrong. Let's put it that way. And this is not a death knell.
I know a lot of people
systems.
were confused by the Wii U because they thought maybe it was just an accessory for the Wii.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that vibe with the Switch 2, mostly in that I looked at it and went, okay, what games are coming out for it that I actually would be like must buys? And to be honest, there's nothing on deck. Like the biggest thing at launch will be the Mario Kart World, which looks great.
Yeah.
If you love Mario Kart, which I'm not a Mario Kart. If you've ever sme play Mario Kart, it's just cringe inducing. I'm so bad at Mario Kart.
I like it, but I don't like. I'll play it for like 45 minutes, and then I'll want to play something else.
Yeah,
I'll play it for a couple races. That's it.
Yeah, my most hyped game coming up for the Switch is probably the new Pokemon Legends, the Z to A. I mean, mind you, I'd never even played Arceus. Even though Ian bought it for me for Christmas, which was very nice of you. But I haven't gotten around to it.
That's fine.
I'm still playing a backlog of games.
Oh yeah, so am I.
Also, the problem is I think increasingly I think it's the thing with AAA gaming. I don't think your audience is kids. I think because kids are just going to play Roblox and Minecraft and Fortnite. They're playing games that are 10, 15. In the case of Roblox, I'm going to remind people, Roblox is almost 20 years old at this point. So kids aren't playing AAA game, like new AAA games. They're playing like basically the same the big three plus like little indie stuff. Like when my pseudo step niece told me she played the Colonel Sanders dating sim.
Yeah.
I think the only people really playing AAA games are oldies like us. And, because everyone I've seen getting super excited about stuff like Claire Obscure are like older people like us, which is,
So, as someone who is a brain-rotted, brain-broken Twitch watcher who has friends on Twitch who are at the oldest, they are like 3 or 4 years younger than me. And most of them are about a decade younger than me. I see a lot of esports, like Marvel Rivals. When Marvel Rivals came out, it was white hot. And mostly now, I mean, like there are a couple playing there. Like before I got on the call, there was people playing the new Elden Ring game. But like my particular group of people I talk to, like they're all playing DayZ, which is like a decade plus old mod of Arma, which is ancient. So like. Yeah, it really is like, millennial, like older millennial gamers, I think, that are playing all the big titles. And even then, I am like, oh my, okay, so I mostly, when I stream, I do like, I talk about comics, I talk about the stuff I'm into, but I also play games. My gaming list is like, I've got Ghost of Tsushima on there, which is like a, 7-year-old game at this point, 6-year-old game. Yakuza Kiwami, which is a decade plus old.
I mean,
Dynasty Warriors, which is the newest game on there, and that's like 5 months old. I haven't played Phantom Liberty yet. I beat the original Cyberpunk, but not Phantom Liberty. And that's the other thing about Switch too, is like there's very good games on there, but they're games I've already played on other systems that are graphically more powerful. So why am I paying for it again on a system that's not going to display it as well?
Yeah. We're in a weird spot right now. There
Yeah.
was I mean, this isn't the gaming podcast, so we can't really go into depth about it, but there was a piece after PAX East
Mhm.
talking about the deprofessionalization of games. And they talked about the fact that like everything that everyone's excited about seems to be coming out of these little indie studios or solo developers.
Yeah.
The fact that Balatro was the biggest game of 2024 and that
Oh
was
my
made
God.
by
Mhm.
one dude.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
also not
and
super expensive.
it's not. I think I forced Ian to buy it. We were on a train. It was kind of hilarious that I basically bullied him into it
Oh,
because
yeah.
I was like, "Come on, man! This game was made for Ian.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally his hole. It's
Oh,
his
yeah.
hole that he will fit in perfectly and come out the other end."
Yeah, and I've played a decent amount of it. I haven't played it in a little while, but I'm definitely gonna go back to it and get the rest of the decks and all that because
Yep.
I'm damn
Yeah.
close.
When the streamers I know, yep, that was her thing for like months. And it's like, yeah, it's these games that are not like, huge budget Hollywood voice acting, realistic skin graphics. Like as much as I like the idea of Horizon Zero Dawn, didn't do that
Yeah.
great. And it's like
Yeah.
incredibly beautiful, but
Yeah.
didn't do that great.
Yeah, I mean, to go back, I mentioned Clair Obscur. Clair Obscur isn't even technically a AAA game. It might be at best AA.
Mm-hmm.
It's a smaller team. It's people who left, I think, Ubisoft,
I think
which
yeah.
which explains why I want to play it because I am a Ubisoft whore. I'll be honest about that. Mostly, when I say whore, I mostly just mean Assassin's Creed. I just play a lot of Assassin's Creed. You talk about playing old games. I'm playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is from 2018.
Mhm.
And I'm having a ball, and I kind of wish I was part of the discourse back then. But again, we're like busy. We only have so much time in the day.
Yeah.
There's still too many games.
We were adults.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With no time.
I mean, I'm playing through. I mean, I need to get back to it. I'm only a little bit into it, but like I'm playing through Spider-Man 2 on the PS5, and I still have an assload of Switch games that I never even touched that are just sitting there waiting to be played. And this happens to me every single console generation. I buy these games and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really interested in this, and then they either sit there and never actually get played, or I open them up, I start them, and then I get distracted by Squirrel, and I wind up, going off and doing something different. Like it's the way I play games, unfortunately. But I am definitely gonna finish Spider-Man 2. That much I know for a fact. I just don't know
maybe
how long
I
it'll
need to
take.
come over and put a gun to your back and be like, Ian,
Yeah.
fight the Kingpin now.
Well, before we move on from the fighting game, by the way, I just wanted to bring this back up to point out some of the Easter eggs that are in this particular screenshot that was shared that you could find
there's a lot.
on Events Hub.
Yeah, there is.
The Dazzler disco background here. This is a Times Square setting, so clearly Dazzler has a concert that's going to be coming out. I love the advertisement for Auntie's Wheat Cakes in the background. Like that is a win right there.
Casual Avengers Tower.
So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I see. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong and people can correct me, but the blue building in the middle above the blast, do you know which one I'm talking about? To the left of Avengers Tower, two
Yes.
buildings over, 1, 2.
Yeah.
That looks faintly like For Freedom's Plaza.
I was thinking that. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the route they went rather than the Baxter Building, because Oscorp Tower is directly next to Avengers. They're on Avenger Park Avenue, which is funny. It's 42nd Street and somehow it's Park Avenue, but whatever.
Even though it's clearly meant to be Times Square.
I know,
Right.
but yeah, this just and the design for Iron Man is so like Gundam-y. It makes me a very happy man. So
I mean,
Oh,
gun
on the-
damn, it looks
on
good.
on the street sign, the very base of it says "No More Mutants."
oh yeah, shit,
Oh,
nice. Oh man,
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at the stickers. Yeah, this is.
Arcs-
See, this is gonna be one of those games where you're not gonna want to play. You're just gonna want to look at the background.
oh, absolutely.
I felt that way about Pokken Tournament.
Oh my god,
oh
yes.
yeah.
As much as I loved playing the game, like it's a fun game.
It
I like
is.
looking at the background more because it like the Pokemon hanging out in the background and the people. I was like, this is so cool looking.
It was
Man,
a lot.
that's-
It was a lot of fun too. I
yeah.
liked that game. It was good times.
My actually going back to games real quick, my most played game in the last month or so is a single developer game called Schedule One.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, where you it's a Walter White simulator, let's say.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Yeah.
I can understand what you're saying, dog. I can understand.
I'm picking up what he's putting down.
Exactly.
No, it's going to be interesting. It's not great. Again, there's an article, Game Informer had the thing, the deprofessionalization, and they talked about how it already collapsed in Australia, where it's like really hard to have a full-time job. I didn't write like an editorial or anything, but my general feeling, I'll give it to you in a nutshell, is that I don't know why people are surprised. I feel like being able to get a full-time job making video games was already kind of weird. When we talked about earlier, like tying it back to what we talked back earlier in this call about how Hollywood and the comic books are both built on the backs of freelancers. And the fact that video games weren't is weird. And it's not even how the industry started. The industry started with, I another thing I read it was great. They said basically it started with time theft from companies because people had access to these computers, like, they were mainframes in offices, and in their spare time they were making little games, just because they could. And then eventually it kind of blossomed into, oh wait, we could actually sell this. And then, from there we got like the home console industry and stuff. So if anything, we're just going back to where we started, where it was a hobby or it was a thing. It's art. It's a thing people do because they love it and hope they can make money. I don't think this is great.
No.
Again, this is why we need unionization. Like, there is a movement to unionize video game studios, and some have. There was a recent one got unionization of ZeniMax. ZeniMax is this very big, if I recall correctly, Chinese company. But this one studio did manage to unionize. I'm looking it up here. ZeniMax Workers United, CWA, and Microsoft. That's what it was.
Okay.
That's a big fucking deal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they are, ZeniMax Media, represented by Communication Workers of America's Locals 2100, 2108, and 6215.
Okay.
They have a tentative contract agreement, and that's a big deal. That's actually really good.
That's huge.
That is what comics needs,
Yes.
and that we need video games to continue doing that because people are not going to be guaranteed a job anymore. And again, I know I could be unpopular for saying this. I'm like, we were crazy for thinking that was ever going to be feasible.
Oh, I know. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just like you don't have a full-time job making a movie because a movie only lasts as long as you're making the movie.
Yeah.
But we do need better protection. What's up, Ralph?
The fact that as a society we're using AI to do art creation instead of making our lives easier, and people are fighting for that. Really, that's what depresses me.
Yeah, well, like AI has its uses, and it has its positives.
Sure,
but
I'm not. It's just you're using it to like, hey, I could use this to like, make a TV show instead of hiring people or whatever, or make a comic without. I don't need an artist anymore.
Or in the video game industry, I don't need to hire background artists. I can just, have AI spit out a couple of posters that I can put on walls and go about it that way. Like that's not the way that I want AI to be.
Yeah,
to be
it's
used.
like you say, the fact that we're using it to replace creative things, as in the things people actually want to do.
Yeah,
exactly.
Instead of replacing, because I'll admit, this isn't even just an AI thing. This has been. As the person in this call right now who has worked the most with tech companies, I have repeatedly come across repetitive tasks that would be made so much easier if a developer could take out an hour of their time and build something that would just do it automatically. And they don't, because they don't want to spend the time, because they're too special to spend their time doing this little bit of work that would save other people, time. And so when the AI thing started happening, it made perfect sense to me. Like, they don't care about people other than themselves. They don't care. They only care about what they do, how special they feel. The fact that it's you may have seen this. The fact that Mark Anderson, this is the Netscape guy. He's one of the biggest VCs on the planet. He's insanely rich, and he has a head that is super pointy. He can be Eggman or Mr. Mrs. Spitlick or whatever. It's a really pointy head, I swear. He was saying, "Oh, every job will be replaced except mine."
Really?
Sure, pal. Sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've seen several people go like, "No, I feel like of all the jobs in the world, yours is the easiest to replace. I could build an AI that looks at different companies and decides which one to invest in."
Yep.
Because at that point, I'm not even a programmer, and I'll be like, "Yeah, you're just creating a machine that can look at numbers numbers and
We
historical
already kind of
events.
have that.
People have also said that it comes down to the fact that they hate that some people can create things. Over the years, I get people be like, "Oh, you have such an imagination. Oh, where did you come up with that?" Like even friends of ours, have been like, "Oh, where'd that come from?" And I had to be like, "My brain."
Yeah.
Like
Well,
they
yeah.
can't stand that they can't do that, and they'd rather put that effort into just making other people miserable rather than one improve themselves, or just
Or
do
just
something good with
pay
your
us
powers.
to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you make
you're-
enough money.
Yeah.
Pay us.
Well-
I'll write you a story about your, stupid, Terminator ripoff because you love tech so much. Except the Terminators are actually the heroes and they're super cool.
They don't want to
whatever.
pay for it. There
No.
are people online that be like, "Hey, I need a headshot of my original character," and you're like, "Okay, you pay me $75." They're like, "That's not worth $75." I'm like, "Well, that's what it costs to get me."
Yeah.
Well, I could just get an AI do it instead. I'm like, mind
I
you,
hate that shit.
mind you, you can still probably find someone who will do it for cheaper. You're just being an asshole. At
Of
that
course.
point.
Of course.
I mean, let's be completely real. If I wasn't the person I am, comic book fan of 35 years, know people in the industry, have friends who are artists like Jamal. Hi, Jamal. I could just be an asshole and be like, "Hey, I've been wanting to make a comic for since you guys have known me, and all right, well, I'm just gonna go into ChatGPT. Hey, give me an image of blah, of this superhero that does this, and then I could do that, right? I could really do that, but I'll produce something, but really, would I have produced something? Will I feel that same? You know what I mean? I don't feel good doing that.
We make art as human beings. We make art not just as a commercial transaction, but because it makes us feel good to do it.
Yes, and it's fulfilling and it's fun and it's
I like
wonderful.
being a writer. I like writing. I mean, I think about that over the years, like especially when I had this big revelation a few years ago that I needed to stop being so precious about it and just like recognize it as craft and that it just needs to get fucking done sometimes. And even that feels good.
Yeah.
Like, I think too many people just think of it as like the end game. Like, I just need this press release, and they don't take any pride in it. They don't care if it's well done, to be honest, at this point.
I'm glad that we're talking about this because two of the things that I brought to the table this episode that I watched within the last week are very much about creating, and I think they're an excellent tentpole to bounce off of after talking a little bit about AI and how it's not. I watched two documentaries this week. I watched Jim Henson Idea Man, and I watched the 2023 documentary Stan Lee that was made by David Gelb, the same guy who made Jiro Dreams of Sushi. And
which I finally watched.
Oh, good.
It was really good. It was really good, and I wish I could eat there at some point. But...
it's hard to do. It's hard to do.
Very hard.
But Jim Henson Idea Man was directed by Ron freaking Howard. And it was made for Disney Plus. It came out in 2024, and it was nominated at Cannes. It very much went through the entire life and the creative mind of Jim Henson, who was taken from us way, 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 way too soon. And what this documentary did right is that it touches on just how much of an idea man Jim Henson is. Yes, it's literally in the name of the documentary, but he was constantly looking for the next thing to do. The entire reason he even started being a puppeteer was because he wanted to be on television. Not because he was interested in puppeteering per se, but he wanted to be on TV. And puppeteering was a way in the door for that. Then when he got tired of doing things the way that he was doing it with puppeteering, he went to this children's workshop presentation and was like, let's do a children's puppet show. And that morphed into Sesame Street. They talk about how originally the street itself was pretty damn normal, and then the puppet segments were separate, and they realized how absolutely boring of a premise and concept that was. So then they melded things together, and Big Bird was kind of like the progenitor of that and the winner of that idea. Then when he got tired of doing that, he moved on and he wanted to do something adult. So he made this incredibly adult to the extreme pilot with puppets that never went anywhere, which was kind of the original Muppet Show, but was never going to get bought because it was way too crude. It would be on Adult Swim today, I guarantee you, his original pilot, but it was not right for the times. And then eventually, the Brits came in and funded the Muppet Show, and that wound up becoming.
Well, I mean, I think you think about the fact that he was there for the first season of Saturday Night Live.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was it? The World of Ood or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. And the SNL cast did not like him. they were not fans of his puppets and didn't really understand why he was there, but it displayed what he was capable of at that particular
Land
moment.
of Gorch.
Thank you, Land of Gorch.
Land of Gorch. I was trying to remember it. I was like, it's a weird nonsense word.
Yeah.
It is a Gorch.
We've both been to the Jim Henson exhibit at the Museum
Yes, we
of
have.
the Moving Image. Raph should probably go check it out.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you're saying, like I remember from the exhibit. The fact is, the man did a lot of things like coffee commercials.
Yes.
And like one of the weirdest like painkiller commercials I've ever seen.
Oh my
in
God!
life.
Yeah, I've seen the one you're talking about.
Yeah, like he was definitely Idea Man is a great way to put it. He's a guy who did things just to do them. It is. I mean, again, I want you to talk about the documentary, but you do make me think about the fact that when you look at what the Jim Henson Company did, besides the Muppets,
Oh,
we
sure.
also had. We had major motion pictures. We had the Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. We also had the show The Storyteller.
Yes. Yep.
And like even after he died, they were still trying to do interesting things. Like when they had Muppets Tonight, I was one of the people who actually watched Muppets Tonight.
I did. I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was terrible.
Yeah.
He made the Ninja Turtles.
Yes, he did.
The suits. And so I wouldn't be talking like this as much as I do.
Farscape was after him, but the Henson Company, very much was behind that and made that work. But also they point out, you mentioned those commercials. He said these commercials really shouldn't have worked for all the explosions that happen in almost every single one of them.
Oh, the coffee commercials.
Oh yes, yeah.
What was the name of the coffee?
Oh, I'd have to look it up. Let's see, Jim Henson coffee.
Yeah, we're both looking it up, right?
Yeah.
Wilkins
coffee. Yep. That's and these were black and white. That's how long ago these were. But
1957. Yeah.
Yep. There were ones involving cannons and it was some weird stuff. What I wish they'd gone further into were his later years. They really didn't go much into what led to his death. They didn't really go much into what was going to be the Disney acquisition. They mention it, but for one thing, they don't mention just how absolutely close to happening it was, and then he died. And because of that was why Hollywood Studios didn't really have the Muppets presence it was going to have. Like, one of the original ideas for the Great Movie Ride was that it was going to be Muppets themed, that it would be the Muppets basically going through all these different movies. And that was a premise that almost came to life. There were also going to be one or two other Muppet attractions that never really materialized. They did have the theater, but that was it.
I know it's not technically feasible, like back then, and even now it would be a stretch. But man, a great movie ride where Statler and Waldorf are in the boat with you, roasting the entire ride.
Oh my God, it would be amazing.
Would be that would be amazing.
That would be
It was so hard to pull off.
Oh my God.
Fun as hell.
Absolutely, yeah. And also, I had no idea Frank Oz was 17 years old when Jim Henson found him. You're right. Now that you mention it, it is in the.
He was.
It just makes it more upset. Like, this goes into that larger thing where people say, when I was your age, I blah blah blah. Why can't you?
Yeah.
And people have made the point. I think the best example I've seen is someone posted GIFs of, it was like the gold medal winning women's gymnastics vault in the Olympics from like 1930, whatever. And it's just like a simple kind of flip. And then they have like on the right side, it's like Simone Biles. Of course.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what we are dealing with now. Like back in the day, you could be 17 years old and just kind of wander into a studio. And
Yep.
I mean, I think about things like Howard Lincoln, president of Nintendo, got that job because he was just Nintendo's lawyer back in the 80s.
Oh my
Like
God.
they were like a nothing company and they just hired this random lawyer and he stuck with the company. And I'm like, he gets to do like that's when you talk about being born in the wrong era. I literally just needed 20 extra years and I probably would have been okay. I mean, I would have been one of the assholes. I would have been a fucking boomer and you could have been like, okay, boomer. And I'd be like, yeah, damn straight. I'm going to retire my giant house and you're going to die at an RV.
Oh my God.
I don't know if I'd be a monster if I were a boomer. It's just, damn.
One of the other things they mentioned, talking about, you know, the fun of it all, they go into Labyrinth and they interview Jennifer Connelly as part of it. And she said that was one of the greatest experiences she had as a child actress, was being able to do all those stunts. And she just wanted to do them again and again and again. Like there were even one or two times where they were like, "We can bring in a stunt person for this," and she was like, "No, I'm having fun." and she was there for the entire experience, and they were really good to her, and it was an incredibly positive set to be on, and Jim dealt with it with care. And that actually made me really happy. To hear, because you don't always get that from from those type of experiences.
I mean, we've mentioned, like I mentioned earlier with Nightmare Alley, it's clear everybody's having a good time.
Yes.
When you said she liked to do the stunts, we both have now seen Mission Impossible Final Reckoning in the past week.
Yes.
And I was reading up on it, and that Pom Klementieff, I can never remember how it's pronounced, but apparently she did a lot of her own stunts because she likes really doing the stunts.
I mean, why not? Yeah.
So now in my mind, her and Tom are just BFF. Yeah.
And then Tom Cruise threw her across 6 skyscrapers, stood 600 feet off the air.
Yep, absolutely. And she landed on her own 2 feet.
Every single time.
Yep. But yeah,
with knives.
With knives. Gotta love Mantis. Overall, it's a well done documentary. I wish there'd been a little bit more depth at times. And like I said, a little bit more about the end of his life. But the fact that they do get interviews with the family, that they get interviews with his collaborators,
and that's why they don't go harder on it, because it's an access thing. It's always going to be a thing. If you want to make a hard-hitting documentary, you are not going to get access to the people you need to, you can either make it soft and then you'll get access to all the people who are deep in on it.
Yeah.
This just reminds me, there was a documentary that was started out as one thing and turned into something else for that precise reason. I think it was supposed to be called like Nub City.
Okay.
So I'm looking up Vernon, Florida, right? Oh yeah. So there's a documentary called Vernon, Florida, and originally it was going to be called Nub City, because what they noticed about this town is it had a very high instance of people with like missing limbs.
Whoa.
And as the documentarian went into town to like kind of look into it, and it becomes very clear people are doing this to claim benefits, to get on disability.
Yeah.
And he's getting kind of like really deep into it. But the problem is if you're going to be critical, people don't want to talk to you. And a few of them are going to threaten to murder you.
Yeah.
So the documentary stopped being Nub City and became more this generic, Florida is so weird and odd. Look at these weird people. Like it just completely soft pedaled, it just backpedaled, soft pedaled. It just went completely mushy on the whole subject. So we never got to see the real like weird ass documentary. But that's the problem with all documentaries. Sure, if you're going to talk about the Stan Lee one too, and they probably have the same exact problem.
Well, in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Yes, this is made by Disney Plus. So obviously, Stan is their darling, because without Stan, they wouldn't have Marvel to make all their TV shows and movies. But this is done after Stan Lee has passed, similar to the Jim Henson doc, which is also why I really like a doc while they're still alive. So then you get stuff like the Steve Martin documentary that's on Apple Plus that is absolutely fantastic and gets like his career at the beginning, and then you get to actually see him and where he is now, and that's really awesome. But This one is actually narrated entirely by Stan. And it's done so using multiple clips from multiple parts of his life. And you could tell because the audio quality keeps bouncing back and forth. The timbre of his voice keeps bouncing back and forth because he's younger, he's older, he's younger, he's older. But he's telling the story of, how he started at Timely, how he started in comics, how he was a 16-year-old editor, mostly because there was nobody else to do it, and he kind of fell into that role.
I would have done it.
Again, that's...
I would have done it.
I know. Trust me, this keeps coming up, but that's...
Just because I was negative 90 doesn't mean I wouldn't have done it.
I know. And Stanley, he talks about how he was saving his actual name of Stanley Lieber for when he was going to do novels.
Yeah, his Great American Novel.
Exactly.
I know that story.
Yeah.
I've heard that one before.
But instead he just became, Stan Lee. They even have footage from some of the early Marvel conventions that were thrown together. What I'm surprised is in there, which I'm actually grateful that they did include. They included audio from when Jack Kirby, after he left Marvel, was on a radio station on the day of his birthday. And the radio station, I think it was K100 or something like that, got Stan to call in. And Stan wishes him a happy birthday and all that, and they're being positive at one point until the conversation kind of falls into who created what. And it's heated. It is very heated, and it does not make Stan look good. It's very obvious that, Stan is looking to try to take the credit. And there's even at one point, there's a piece of dialogue that says that, well, Steve Ditko was upset because he felt like he should have gotten credit in creating Spider-Man. But I came up with the idea, and I think the person who came up with the idea should be the one that's credited. But we threw him a bone, and we gave him a creditor, a credit on the book. Well, that bone basically then just set the standard, because that point moving forward, the artist and the writer were the creators, and that's it. But there's also other parts of this documentary where later on in life, he's much more willing, honest, and open to admit that it was a collaborative situation. And he's much more gracious about it. Way, way more than fucking Bob Kane, which screw him.
Yeah. I think absolutely. When you look at the paper trail, the reports, the interviews and stuff. I do recommend if you've not read it, you should read the Marvel: The Untold Story.
Yeah,
I have that book.
Yes,
and that book. What I like about, that book isn't perfect. I think the biggest failing I had with that book is that as it gets later on, it gets less interesting because they have access to less of the juicy bits.
Yeah,
because nobody's gonna tell tales if they're still working in the industry.
Oh, sure, yeah.
My favorite bit of that book is that's the book that told me that Darkhawk was focus tested on a bunch of 8-year-old kids. And being a 7-year-old kid at the time Darkhawk debuted, it made sense.
I appreciate...
He was designed for me to love him.
I appreciate that Darkhawk has been mentioned more on this episode of the podcast than he has been in the last 10 years of comics. So I think that's...
I am the last champion.
Yes, you are.
Okay? Yeah. I am going to champion him. I get it.
I know.
Don't think I don't get it. He's not a great character.
No, he's not. He's pretty good.
He's
pretty
good.
Good.
We all have characters that we champion for the stupidest of reasons. I brought up Captain Boomerang Jr. In this episode so far.
Yep.
I love that idiot. I just love really dumb, cute idiots.
Oh, yeah.
It's I don't know. So you can tell, you read books like that, and you look at the interview, you look at the historical record, and I think Stan's biggest period of puffery was probably the late 70s, the 80s, and that's when he was in Hollywood, right? They were trying so hard to get adaptations of Marvel of Marvel comics into the movies, into TV. And you know what's really funny about this is that nobody was happy with this. And it's very clear when you read the comics that there are so many jokes about Stan in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, they're not even nice jokes. They're like, oh yeah, what happened to that Stan guy? Oh, he got too big and he went to Hollywood. Or, oh, I'd love to meet Stan Lee. No, well, sorry, he's in Hollywood now. Like there was Impossible Man or whatever was looking for him. Like there's a lot of bitterness, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that was probably the peak era when he was the public face of Marvel. And the thing is, I can't blame him. Like I'm not saying he's a complete asshole for doing that because it's understandable when you're trying so hard to sell the company, and it's easier for people to conceptualize like this fertile creative mind. And you feel like if you're in Hollywood, you're already working in one of the biggest entertainment industries in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like everyone else is beneath you. Let's be honest that like TV is still kind of not slumming it. Comics are an afterthought at that point. So, to puff himself up, he makes the Hollywood people feel special. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, I really like that character. Well, I created it." I'm not saying that's totally what was going through Stan's
Mm-hmm.
head, but
Yeah.
it's sort of understandable when you look at the arc. Because the reason I mentioned the Untold Story, which also goes into the puffery he had to do in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
but I also the early part of that book talking about the early days of the Marvel age, is counting from 1960, 1962.
1, yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever Fantastic Four #1 is.
Yeah, from there on. And the impression I got from reading the book is that Stan worked just as hard as any of them did.
Oh, sure.
Like this is why I will still defend him because I'm like he did do a lot of work, the groundwork to get this company going. I think Kirby and Ditko did deserve more credit than they probably got at the
Yes.
time. And I
Yes.
think I talked earlier about the moral arc of the universe, which I'll be honest is a phrase I'm borrowing from Riverdale, which is a terrible TV show, but it is a great line. But the fact that we have recognized that, like we have a lot of things have come around, and that's one of them is that we now recognize that they did this great work. And I
Oh,
think the
yeah.
moral arc will also kind of recognize what Stan did and didn't do. Because you're right, like as he got older, he definitely stepped back, but he also didn't have to be an active cheerleader.
Yes, exactly.
He was
Which
not hustling people anymore.
well, and that's one of the things that they also go into in the documentary. Again, it's a documentary where because of the nature of the beast, we kind of go from like 1980 to when they started making movies. Like not much is said in that in between. Not much is said about his his own independent ventures because obviously they wouldn't because this is a Disney Plus documentary about Stan Lee, so they're going to talk about Marvel. But one of the things that I found the most fascinating as well is that they had a panel interview that was done on some talk show with a hippie comic book reader who was talking about why Marvel was succeeding over DC for the youth generation of the time. And one of the reasons why was one of Stan's strong suits was that he was willing to bring up more complicated issues, and that it was much more real world than what DC was doing. And I believe it was Julie Schwartz who was on the panel that said, in response to this kid saying that's why he prefers Marvel is that they're more real and that they learn things, he said, well, we've polled our readers and they don't really want to learn. And that just told me that at that time DC was trying to do something for the younger audience while the more mature young audience was going for Marvel for a very specific reason at that point.
And that's why Jimmy Olsen's a giant turtle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that's why DC was doing the fantastical crazy shit while Marvel was, publishing stories without the code about Harry Osborn having a drug problem. Like that's the type of shit. I may not be the biggest fan of Stan Lee's dialogue for the most part, which I very much have said multiple times on multiple podcasts.
I will honestly I'll shit on his writing. And honestly, I mean, I think Kirby had some good dynamism in his art.
Yeah.
But there are times when I'm like, that doesn't look good. It's more like I focus more on how the characters are designed.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And a lot of the time, I'm like, "Wow, that character does not look good. Oh, that's not look good." And I feel that with Kirby a lot.
and the give and take of it all is what made it work. Like how Jack wanted Silver Surfer to just be an entity from space. But we brought this up on Back to the Bins. I think Chris Everly was the one who brought it up in the first place. But like, you know, Kirby wanted them to just be this entity from space, but Stan was like, no, let's give him a backstory. Let's have him be, you know, from this planet that was devoured by Galactus and turned into a herald. Like that made a lot more sense.
Lee and Kirby and Lee and Ditko are kind of proof of, to say that it was all Kirby or all Ditko is, I think, inaccurate, because if it really was, the work they did after leaving Marvel
would have been different. Yeah,
it would have been much bigger if it was all their effort, all of their creative ideas and all that. Then things like The Question or New Gods should have blown up, and they didn't.
Yep.
And mind you, the same is true of Stan. Nothing Stan did outside of those artists that period really blew up the way it did. Like that was, as they call, lightning in a bottle. And again, that's why I will continue to defend it, but it is the partnership that created that work, not one or the other.
Absolutely.
It truly is 50-50, not like, you know, 70-30 or 30-70 or a 90-10 or whatever.
Yeah. And he goes into the Marvel method as well on this, and how, you know, he would literally plot things and then the artist would essentially write the issue.
Do they still do the Marvel method?
It depends. Sometimes you'll still find that. There are still a couple of people that do something similar to that. I know Dan Slott every now and then slips into the Marvel method.
Yeah, because I feel like I know that every time I've seen modern scripts, they're mostly done like normal scripts instead of Marvel method.
Yeah.
And again, reading old comics, you start to realize like the limitations of the Marvel method. Also, just reading X-Men and realizing Claremont was phoning in a lot of the stuff he was overextended.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. If you want, we'll take 10 minutes at the end of this call and I will bitch about my latest X-Men discoveries.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But just to put a long story short on it, anybody saying that this is just a straight up puff piece, you're reading too much into it. I think they actually did a very good job of showing both the positives and the negatives of Stan through his own words, honestly, in this documentary, and also how much Flo Steinberg mattered in the bullpen, and his loving relationship with Joan. Joan and Stan were inseparable, and they, you know, it's not a surprise to me that Stan only lasted a couple of years after Joan, because they were together for years and years and years and years and years. And overall, it was a well done. Both of these were well done documentaries that I wish had just gone a little bit deeper, but they had to do what they had to do as a documentary. So
yeah, well, I think about the time there were two documentaries at the same time. One was a 30 for 30, and the other wasn't. The two documentaries about the Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And one had Tanya and the other had Nancy.
I remember.
You can see right away. You're like, oh yeah, that's why there's two documentaries, because these bitches ain't gonna be in the same documentary.
Oh yeah,
it was the same room.
It was literally she said for either side. Like it was, and they were completely different style documentaries because of that. Like one was Tanya was at fault but wasn't at fault, while the other one was why.
I think the movie, the Margot Robbie movie, was definitely the definitive statement there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, just blame the ex-husband. Like, holy crap. I know 100%. We've talked about this, Raph. I remember you said that movie hit you because of like how crappy her home life was.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, fuck Bucky, piece of shit.
All right, let's maneuver into stuff we've read, and then we'll go ahead and wrap things up from there. And Chris, you said you wanted to talk X-Men, so now's your opportunity.
First off, I've brought this up in the group chat, and I want to ask, like, why is Kitty Pryde the one X-Men character who has said the N-word 3 times?
Ooh,
I knew about 2 of them going in, and then it was Dono who brought up the New Mutants instance.
Oh no!
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, the thing is, look, I'm not black. None of us in this call are black. We can't make the definitive statement. But I think my biggest issue is more like, why is it always the same character?
Mm-hmm.
What are you trying to say about Kitty Pryde? Is it because she's Jewish? Does she get some weird sort of Jewish pass?
No.
As the Jew on the call, Ian.
Yeah, as the Jew on the call. No.
Yeah, and on top of that, my revelation last night as I was reading, I'm finally up to Fall of the Mutants. And I was reading like one of the New Mutants issues, and I noticed that Rain Wolfsbane says Spalpeen or Spalpeen a lot. It's actually supposed to be Spalpeen, and sometimes they misspell it as Spalpeen. And I finally got tired of seeing it because when I see Spalpeen, I keep thinking of Spalding. Like the balls, which are called Spaldings here. Like, and I looked it up, and it is a slur for poor Irish people. And I'm like, first of all, she's Scottish. I don't even know why she's using an Irish term, and you can't blame Banshee because he's not around enough for her to imprint on that. But I'm like, I realized, like, no, this is Claremont. Claremont just loves throwing random slurs into his freaking books because one of those issues where Kitty uses the N-word is she uses a bunch of other slurs because she's trying to make a bigger point about mutie, which is counted as a slur. I'm going to be honest and say it's such a weak ass slur. Like, their imaginary slur is just terrible for a slur. Like, it doesn't hit because, like, it's just a shortened version of mutant. I'm like, it's too cute to be properly slur-like to me.
Yeah, freak is more powerful.
These darn muties. Yeah,
Gene Freak, I think, is one that we see a lot. Like, things like that actually seem hurtful.
It also seems like it could be a pretty tasty cereal in the Marvel universe. By the way, muties.
Maybe.
Like,
yeah, I will also point out the Hellions say mutie a lot.
Yeah.
Which is definitely
that's our word. You can't use that.
It's just very interesting to read this stuff in the 80s and also start wondering what the hell is going on in Claremont's head. I grew up on X-Men. I'll be honest, I did come in after the Claremont era, but I read a lot of the Claremont stuff in the 90s and the 2000s, so I do have a good grasp of X history. Ian used to be like, Chris knows more about the X-Men than you do, and there was a time when that was true. It's no longer true because I am 10 years out of date with my X knowledge.
But you know what helps? Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men. Dude, check that out.
I had people telling me over the weekend, I should listen to it. I said, there's like 500 episodes. I don't got time for that.
Hey, every now and
someone to watch One Piece from the beginning.
Every now and then I go back to it. I'm past the age of apocalypse in their episodes at this point.
I mean, I'm halfway. Yeah, I'm at like episode 600 of One Piece. So, I could do it if I wanted to. Yeah. There's just other podcasts that I also listen to.
Yes.
Honestly, I think I'd rather just read them all like you are. I'm going to start eventually.
It's interesting. I bounce back and forth. I read, like, if there's like a crossover, I tried to read the crossover. I think I mentioned to you guys that I've been reading it and logging them as like the Marvel Masterworks collections because those were some instances the only time certain issues were reprinted.
Yeah.
It's made me aware of how much Marvel Unlimited is missing. And again, I know I brought this up, like the fact that there's a lot of reprint books, but sometimes there's original material in the reprint books and they forget that and they don't put it in Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
And then I also discovered Marvel Unlimited is very poorly tagged because I was like, I want to read, I might want to read Captain Britain with Betsy Braddock. And I decided to search for Betsy Braddock and they don't have any of her prior to like when she first showed up in X-Men. They don't even have her tagged in her first American appearance.
Really?
So I had to send them a very Karen-y letter. I had to send them a letter being like, this is tagged improperly. And I just got the response like, we will pass this on to our tagging team. How did we do? Did we resolve your complaint? And I just like responded with, fuck no.
Wait, is the tagging team hiring?
I would hope. I mean, honestly, that is a job. Yeah,
I'll do it part-time. I swear to God, I'll do it part-time. I don't care. I just give me free Marvel Unlimited. And like, minimum wage, and I'll do it. I don't care.
Yeah, because the tagging is shit. Like I searched for, I searched for Betsy Braddock. I searched for Captain Britain and didn't find when she was Captain Britain. In the bad old days. I was trying to find the different first appearances. Madeline Pryor's first appearance isn't logged properly.
Oh,
I was like,
well, that's crazy.
Come on,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really bad. I mean, my
Tell me
other,
the first appearance of the X-Men is not tagged properly.
I mean, maybe it isn't. I'm almost afraid to check. It's
I
it's
know.
not.
Yeah, it's
I mean, there's a
that's
lot of things they
awful.
could do better. I mean, my number one complaint is that when you have a crossover, it doesn't automatically take you to the next issue in the crossover. Like, they have reading guides, but the reading guides are just like the list. I've never had it kind of pop over. And like if you do it outside of I don't know. I don't actually use those little reading guides as much. I just read it naturally, but it should pop you over to the cross. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Does that
I
make
think
sense?
it does.
I know what you mean.
When I was reading Hickman's like House and Powers of X,
It is
or
linked
10,
properly.
it is linked properly.
But it's
if I
the older
remember
stuff.
right.
Yeah, the older stuff isn't linked to
That
itself
might
at all.
be
A
thing,
lot.
yeah, 'cause-
Well, even when I was reading, I mean, you might have noticed this too, Chris. When we were reading X-Men and Uncanny, at least the new stuff, like that crossover between X-Men and Uncanny, I had to keep going back.
It's not linked.
Yeah.
Like some of the reading guides are, but a lot of them aren't, and there's no excuse for that at this point if it's like
Yeah.
a newer comic. But
Marvel, pay me. I'll do it. I promise. I'm
Yeah.
good at. See, okay. This is the reason why I spent most of my paycheck at work for 15 years of my life between Midtown Comics and Diamond, because I probably have the first 8 volumes of every Marvel Masterworks for every major character that I
dear
care
God.
to have.
Oy vey.
So like Thor, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, maybe Cap. I have them all in Marvel Masterworks softcover. And it's like I don't think I'm gonna ever get rid of these. I'll get rid of the comics, but the trades, with the way that Marvel Unlimited is improving so slowly,
yeah, it could be better. I mean that can be a whole episode. I think we've talked about wanting to do a
Yes.
digital issue.
Mhm.
I mean, my general just like observations about the comics themselves, because I don't want to just bitch about Marvel Unlimited because that could be again 3 hours. The 80s were weird. I talked about how, and I think this is just all media in general in the 80s was very rapey. And people have said, I actually Googled this. I literally Googled it, like, why was 80s media so rapey? And nobody can seem to have a definitive answer. It mostly comes down to people say, like, one, the Hays Code went away, so everybody could put whatever they wanted in movies. But then that doesn't answer the question of, but why the 80s when the Hays Code was gone in the 60s? And I think it was a feminism reaction, honestly.
very true.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of Marvel comics, because I was reading Secret Wars 2, which again is a complete piece of shit. But the fact that the Beyonder has basically raped like dozens of women was just really disturbing to me. That's I'm not. It's not that I'm not enjoying the comics. It's just like you have that it was the 80s comes up way more than I'm starting to be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I know. And I don't want to talk about this all night, so I will just end it with I mentioned to them, but I don't think it's on the call yet. How last episode I was bitching about Kitty and Peter about how they were age inappropriate because as much as people are like, oh, but they're the perfect couple, but I'm like, she was 13 when she joined the X-Men and he would have been like 19 at that point. It's weird. And the only person who seems to acknowledge that is inappropriate is Peter himself.
Well,
and it's
there you
not
go.
even. It's the funniest part about it is he's not even like, oh, it's disgusting. He's just like, well, if we were in Mother Russia, I would be married to her already. Which I think is just the funniest. But then I got to Doug Ramsey and Betsy Braddock, and there was a weird thing going on there for a while.
Oh boy.
And she's like pushing 30, so I think that's the part where if it was a comic, I would have thrown it in the air, but I'm not going to throw an iPad in the air.
Good.
It's going to hit me in the face.
Yes.
Oh God, yeah.
And that may also damage the iPad, so don't do that.
Yeah. But, seeing as how I am like probably like 2 issues from the kid getting shot and dying, it's not going to be an issue anymore. Also, no, my last observation is Doug Ramsey gets shot at least twice in the issues in the run up to his death. I don't know if they were foreshadowing or if they just kept changing their mind of when he actually died.
No, save it for another issue.
No, it's
fine.
fine. It's fine. His superpower is that he survives gunshots. It's okay. It's fine.
The more he gets shot, the more stronger he gets.
Yeah, I should not have looked him up to see what they did to my boy.
Yeah, well,
I looked at that issue. Oh my God, that is bad. Oh.
it's okay. It's okay. Now he's just Apocalypse. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's just Apocalypse, no big deal.
yeah, it's all good. What? Yes.
I'm like, this is okay. You guys talk about something else
All right.
because I'm just gonna get really depressed if I keep thinking about it.
Ralph, go ahead. What you got?
Speaking of X-Men, well, real quick,
Yeah.
speaking of documentaries, going a little further back, a couple of weeks ago, I watched the YouTube documentary on Grant Morrison. I forgot what it was called. Let me just do a quick search.
I had my entire rant for you to look that up, Raph.
I just thought I was gonna talk about this, but
Is it Grant
Morrison talking with
yeah.
gods?
Yep, I got it.
Oh,
and
okay.
I thought it was really good. Grant goes through his whole journey from like the 90s till like towards like to about the time he leaves DC for a while there. And there's a lot he talks about a lot of interesting things like his philosophy of magic and how his journey through the Invisibles pretty much autobiographical. It wasn't there was nothing made up. He just did something while he was traveling the world, and then he just wrote about it, and that was the Invisibles.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah, and you know, like it's interesting to hear their like how they started, how they talk about how they're just this quiet, shy kid, and then one day they're like, "Huh, I'm gonna do a bunch of drugs and travel the world," and now we have Grant Morrison. So it was cool. It was good. It's cool to listen to one of my idols talk about their life as a writer and a creator and a human being.
Nice.
And so yeah, that's a good watch. I recommend it. It's free on YouTube. You don't have to pay for anything.
Good.
Also, and then since I'm not caught up on absolute Batman, Superman, or Wonder Woman because my stupid ass didn't add them to pull list or something because I'm missing one issue.
Yeah, I know.
From each series except the Superman one. They just can't. Diamond never sent them, or Random House or whoever didn't send them the. No, wait, they're the distributor. They didn't get the Absolute Superman #5.
Oh, okay.
And they canceled my order and didn't give me another cover. So,
all right.
My friend Demetrius at Everyone Comics, located in Long Island City, is going to help me replace that.
Well, good.
So, but in the meantime, I did take the time before before we started recording to read Ultimate X-Men Volume 1. Written and drawn by Peach Momoko, the very famous cover artist. Donald, absolutely, I believe it's Donald that is the one that loves her work. Maybe Brandon is too. I don't remember. Who said they loved her work.
Brandon's definitely a fan. Yeah.
Also, I can hear Zach screaming now because he is technically the co-plotter.
Yep. Yes.
He's not the translator. People keep saying translated by Zach Davison, and that's not actually true.
Yeah. He co-plots and co-writes this with.
They just don't put his name on the front because his name doesn't.
Oh
sell.
yeah, script adaptation. That's the term they use by Zach. And it's really good. It's obviously it's set in Japan much more, and it's an interesting interpretation. They don't there's hints. There's like implications of certain characters paralleling to other characters. The obvious characters we know are obviously Armor.
Yep.
Who's our POV character?
And Armor's armor looks very Full Metal Alchemist.
Yes. Yes, that is very yes. And it's very dark. The story is pretty dark and it's pretty it's got a lot of heavy themes. Like there's content warning, self-harm, blah, et cetera, for those of you who are concerned about those things, maybe don't read this one, but it's very good. It's the first 6 issues. It caught me, it struck me. So I have issues 7 through 12 in single right over there. I'll probably get to those this week or next week. Honestly, I have 3 boxes of short box. I have 3 short boxes right here. One's Marvel, one's DC, one's Indie, and I gotta get through them. I gotta really organize them, and then I gotta pull what I want to read, and I gotta read it, and that's it.
How long is your ride to work?
Half an hour.
Because, dude, that's like time for 2 comics.
That's true. Yeah.
It's more like 4 for me. I can read a comic in 7 minutes.
Well, there you go.
And I also get an hour. When I worked at Midtown, I was the designated, he reads everything guy. So I've gotten it down. I am a frightening comic book reading machine. I've just haven't used that skill in over a decade now because I haven't been. When was I at Diamond? 2017. So yeah, it's been 8 years. So I got to rebuild that muscle, but I also get an hour break, and work is really chill. I work in archives, so like it's not like
Nice.
people are calling me every day for records. So I can sneak a book in
Are
if I want to.
are any of the original 5 in Ultimate X-Men, by the way, or is it just all?
No,
Okay.
but there's the implication of a character that's giving vibes of an original character.
Okay, got
But
it.
I don't know if this is if it's supposed to be that character or if this is a character I don't want to say too much without spoiling.
That's
but
fine. That's fine. Yeah.
The character I'm talking about, it seems like a mix of two different characters.
Okay, makes sense.
There you
sense. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I know Wolverine exists outside of this book. Wolverine has the ultimate Wolverine is a thing that exists.
Waiting
in
for
its
the
own
trade,
thing. Yep.
so I'll read that eventually.
Woofta, woofta.
Wifta. I've read Ultimate Universe Volume 1, but I don't remember. I thought it was good. If I remember right, it ends with
it's pretty decent.
Tony Stark like being blamed for like the destruction of like for a terror event and some, or when he finds out the truth that the maker is not from their universe or whatever. I have to reread that because I've also got the Ultimates on tap, and I've got Ultimate Spider-Man on tap, so I might as well. I read that like last year, literally like about a year ago. So I need to refresh myself because this feels a little more standalone since it's in Japan. It's not tied into the rest of the universe.
Right.
So it's very good. So if people want it actually it feels like what the Marvel mangaverse wanted to be back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a very Japanese story. This reads like this reads like a creepy manga story. Like a horror manga. It reads just like one, and like a horror like student high school manga.
Okay.
So I liked it a lot. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about it. I enjoyed it. If you like that kind of stuff, read it. It's very good.
Fair enough. So I've got 3 things. One is something that I unfortunately would say avoid like the plague. I really wanted to like the TVA comic that Marvel Unlimited that Marvel put out because it looked like it was going to be very Exiles-esque. A group of people stuck outside of their dimension hopping to try to right wrongs and all that jazz. Instead, it's one of those really annoying comic books that's supposedly set in the main Marvel, comics universe where everyone's acting like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And everyone looks like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So they've taken the characters of the TVA. They even have Miss Minutes as a character in this, as an AI that apparently went horribly awry. Not even in the pages of the TVA book. Apparently that happened in, I think, Spider Ghost, or Ghost Spider, that is. And now it's happening in this. But I don't know. I tried the first 2 issues, and I couldn't even discern what the plot was. It just seemed like they were doing the wink and nod, like, hey, that guy looks like Owen Wilson. Isn't that awesome? Type of situation, rather than actually telling a story about the TVA. So unfortunately, that's a huge skip for me, and it sucks because it should have been good. 2 things that I also read. One is the first issue of Hush 2, and it's a meh. I don't exactly hate it. I don't exactly love it. It feels like it could have literally been written the day after the last Hush issue came out. This is issue 158 of the current Batman. And if you had told me that this had been sitting on a shelf since the mid-2000s, I would have believed you, honestly. Like, Jeff Loeb is writing this like his Batman, and not necessarily like the Batman that we've gotten in the current DC. Doesn't surprise me at all, because it doesn't surprise me at all. Like, you can get away with that in Long Halloween because you're literally telling a story that's set in the past and it's kind of a side story and it's separate and all that. But this is supposed to be modern day Batman, but he's in the first issue, Joker is abducted by Hush, and Hush does all this like half surgery on him and like clamps his mouth, and you're getting very hushy dialogue coming out of Hush because he's a husher and he hushes. And by the end of the issue, Batman finds Joker and immediately is like, this must be Hush. And that's how the issue ends. And I don't know. I may just wait for all of it to be out just so I could read it all in one go and see whether or not I like it anymore. But I wasn't asking for a sequel to Hush. I really wasn't. But I guess Jim wanted to draw again. And also, I fully agree with Brent. This ain't the best Jim Lee art. Like, it almost looks like someone aping Jim Lee more than anything else. Like, I wonder how much of this Jim actually drew and how much of it is Scott Williams drawing it with inks. Because, I mean, maybe I'll have to see the original black and whites and actually see that one way or the other. But it's a simplified style for Jim, which works at times and other times just feels like he's phoning it in. So, I don't know. It wasn't my favorite thing. What was my favorite thing that I will definitely talk about here, as it is probably going to win some Eisners. Absolute Martian Manhunter. This is the cover to the second issue. I read issue 1. I haven't read issue 2 yet. What I love the most about this is that Javier Rodriguez is so very obviously influenced by not only pulp, but he's going for like almost like New Frontier style artwork with this, with a little bit more of a pop. And I love New Frontier. Everyone knows that. I mean, everyone does. Darwin Cook is a master, and his artwork is very reminiscent of a more stylized Darwin Cook. And the story of this is that you're getting, Martian Manhunter's alias, and who apparently survived a fire, and nobody's sure how he did, but he has a wife, he has a kid, he's a detective like John Jones should be, but he keeps getting these like flashes, and there's like trails coming from people's heads which are allowing him to read their thoughts, and he's getting bits and pieces of this Martian that may or may not be him, or may not be an entity of some other kind that is connected to him. And it's all really freaky, creepy, out of this world action that Denise Camp brings to the table beautifully. And I'm in, man. Like, this is a very, very different DC comic that if you had told me was a Vertigo comic, I would believe you. That's the style that Denise Camp is definitely bringing to the table with this. But that's kind of what Absolute is doing. Like Absolute brings a more mature bent and a more indie bent almost to DC characters, in a lot of ways. And I'm in. Like, this is going to be probably my favorite of the Absolutes once it's all said and done. So Absolute Martian Manhunter #1 was very, very much worth reading, and I'm glad I did. And those are comic books that have been read, and excellent.
Well, real quick, I got this in my last DCBS shipment. And
that would be the Kingdom Come. What do they call those again?
What are they called? The Compact Comics.
There you go.
Yeah. So, I'm not going to review Kingdom Come. I've read this like 25 times. You don't need to hear my opinion on one of my favorite stories. All right, whatever. This is a review of the format.
Look, an arrow, a green arrow. Okay, anyway, continue.
That's completely different.
I know.
I think you should make a soundboard with sounds from the audiobook.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And 7 thunders cried out their names.
It's so good.
I like the format. It's slightly bigger than a Tankobon. Like, I think a Tankobon is like that. It's like this big so like it's like 10-15% bigger. It's newsprint on the inside, which is fine. The printing comes off pretty well as I'm flipping through it. Alex Ross's art is still gorgeous. what a surprise! His art at his peak popularity 20 years ago. I mean, his art's still great today. I mean, I'm not saying it's not great now, but like,
Yeah.
this is like his biggest. This is his seminal work. So
That was him buckling down and actually creating an entire story
Yes.
as opposed to
Yeah.
just doing covers once in a while. Because I
Exactly.
miss that. I mean, I get it's so time and labor intensive. I get why he doesn't do that anymore, but I miss it. I really do miss having Alex Ross stories, being able to buy an issue of just Alex Ross like art.
oh, Justice Society.
You need to read his Fantastic Four graphic novel that came out, Fantastic Four First Steps. It is absolutely gorgeous, and it is completely what you want from Alex Ross. I'm sorry.
you mean Full Circle?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Full Circle. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
First
gonna say
Steps
First
is a
Steps is the
movie.
movie
I
because
know.
I know you told me there is going to be a prequel comic.
Yes, there is. Yeah, written
By Matt Fraction.
Yeah, by Matt Fraction and Dale Eaglesham. Like, come
That
on.
sounds good.
Yeah. Yep.
I bought my tickets today.
Nice.
So if
my
you
friend
want,
Fabio got me tickets
we should pencil. What day are you seeing it, Ralph?
Thursday. So if you guys want to go again, I will go.
Oh no, I'm saying I'm seeing it Thursday at like 2:30. So if we wanted to record that night, like we did with
I'm seeing it at 6, and
Okay.
I'm going with Fabio because we're gonna get giant 18-inch Galactus helmets together.
Of
so.
course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We can definitely record that probably by the Monday at the absolute latest. Like, because I have a feeling most of us are going to wind up seeing it in the first couple days it's out. So yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, again,
Yeah, I guess I won't watch Superman that Thursday.
Oy vey.
I mean, you could go early.
Yeah, see them both.
I have to work though.
Well, you said Colin.
I get off at 4:45, and it's like, I could.
Yeah.
I'll have sick time by then. No,
But-
not enough sick.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Like Raph is a hard worker.
Yes, he is.
Oh, it's. I'll tell you after the recording's over. It's
Okay.
it's very good.
To bring it back though, like you don't feel like anything's lost with the smaller form factor. I
mean, my vision is a little worse than it was, so. But like, no, looking at the text, I can still read it clearly.
Okay.
I think it's the color. The color might be a little off because it's newsprint.
Yeah.
not like glossy. I
That's
think
fair.
like
Yeah.
the
It was
color is a
originally
little
glossy.
off. Yeah.
We
So,
talked
like,
about that with when we were arguing about modern art, and my definition basically is like it wasn't made for a certain format.
Mm-hmm.
Like was it made to be digitally, like digital coloring? Was it made to be seen on a screen versus paper? And that's what I noticed with a lot of the old comics. Again, since I'm rereading all this stuff, it's like how some of it looks terrible on the screen because it was designed with that newsprint in mind, with the muted colors of newsprint.
Yeah.
That's why I love. That's. I think I showed this off before, but that's why I love this.
Any minute now. Any minute.
That
You
pile is
got
very
it.
sad,
You got
Raph. It is.
got
It is making me very sad to realize that was a pile of stuff behind you.
There you go. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So we got the 90s and we got the 30s.
Yeah. Wow.
I love this so much.
Holofoil Action Comics just feels so wrong. I'm sorry.
I get these weird like flashback sensory memories whenever I look at a foil cover or a lenticular cover or and then there was that weird like plastic plus foil. I don't know what it's actually called. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you
Where
mean.
it's like a clear
Listen.
plastic. Yeah.
Some kids got to go to Disney World, and some kids got to buy foil covers. Okay,
Yeah, some kids spent $5 on a Sabretooth one shot with a foil cover, which was my entire allowance for that week.
Yes, and that's just the love I have for foil. I can't say no to. Actually, I have said no to foil covers, and it hurts. But it's also like $9 just for a shiny cover. I can't do it. For a 32-page shiny cover.
Not to stop your shiny cover information, but before we wrap up, I hate that I'm putting this where I'm putting this in the rundown here because this is actually kind of like really important. Breaking news on Diamond as of 2 hours ago. Diamond
we started.
Yeah. Diamond cancels all orders from Marvel, Boom, Dark Horse, IDW, and more. This just came down the pipe. Major comic publishers are no longer available to U.S. retailers through Diamond's distribution network. Boom, Dark Horse, IDW, Marvel, Distillery, Ghost Ship, Golden Books, Kodansha, Marvel Press, Random House, Seven Seas, Tokyo Pops, Squeenix, Vertical, Webtoons.
When you walk away,
Yeah.
you don't hear me say, please, oh baby, don't go.
So here's a thought.
Wow.
I don't know how much we've talked about this, but like, yeah, we have definitely talked about how Diamond's problems are a big deal because they were the only game in town for so long, and it's taken a while for the industry to get back up on its feet and get more distributors.
Yep.
But this really, everyone who's listened to Comic Timing and has listened to an episode of me knows my great love of comic shops and their stranglehold over.
Hey.
So it does get me wondering, like, how much damage will this do to local shops that don't use Penguin directly? So that's what
They're gonna have to.
They're going to have to.
Smaller
Smaller
shops.
Plain and simple. Like Penguin does have a partnership with Lunar on certain titles as well, where they can distribute through Lunar. It's just the sub distribution for all Penguin Random House has been severed as of now. And anything with an on sale date after June 25th has been straight up canceled. So they're going to have to get it through Penguin Random House, or if there's another subsidiary, then that's it. So
this I feel like this would have bigger knock-on effects than anything else we've discussed so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And mind you, obviously DC's not on this list because DC's through Lunar. So, and I think they still sub-distribute like some of the trade paperbacks and stuff like that through Diamond, and that's not affected by this. It's just Penguin Random House had an opportunity to say bye, baby, and they took it because
I think they owed them the most. That's their biggest debtor, isn't it?
One of them, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it is like you said. This, according to that timestamp on that article, that broke just before we started recording.
Yep.
By the time people hear this, it will be old news. But yeah, there's not really much I can add until I see other like comic shops weigh in on it and the companies.
Yeah.
Well,
but that feels like it could be really bad.
Yeah.
My takeaway is I really can't get a job with my old employer, huh?
Well, Universal Distribution has been rumored to be hiring Diamond staffers to enter to enter the U.S. market. So, they're looking to expand past Canada as part of this acquisition, which is why they did this in the first place, was to try to widen their reach. So they probably people who were with Diamond Select Toys that got let go are probably going to wind up getting at least some of them are going to wind up getting jobs with the new distributor, essentially. But yeah, this
chaos.
Oh man, I hate putting this back in the episode, but guess what? That means you got to listen to a whole damn episode when it comes out, fellas. So sorry, not sorry. This sucks for Diamond, but hopefully it won't be too dangerous to other people. So.
Wait, why am I looking for a job? I have a job.
Yes, I know, Raph. Come on. Seriously.
Yeah, you're not.
I miss comics. I miss working in comics.
You know what, though? I have said this in the past that sometimes it's better. But everyone talks about having a job you love, and I think that is honestly a terrible idea because when you love your job, it can break your heart.
Absolutely.
I look for a job I merely like so that I don't hate Mondays. But I don't expect any more of that. I just want to be able to tolerate my job. I don't need to love it. I'm not one of those people that's be like, oh, nobody on their deathbed wishes they spent more time at work. Because I guarantee you there are people who wish they spent more time at work.
Of course.
For all you know, I might wish I spent more time at work because since we were talking earlier about creative stuff, there are parts where I've actually liked my jobs, Yeah. I don't have a full-time job right now. Hopefully I will have one at some point in the near future.
That'd be nice.
That would be nice. I'm not saying anything, I'm not talking about any interviews that I might have done recently that were promising.
No jinxing. No jinxing.
No
That's
jinxing.
it.
No
That's
jinxing.
it. No jinxing. What I will say, however, is even if there is not a full-time job at the moment, let's move ourselves on the plugs and get this sucker to bed because people need to go to bed, and that is also nice as well. So
I'm just gonna eat ice cream.
I mean, or eat ice cream.
I am going to go to bed.
Either way. So
Yeah, you need to, because if you're getting up at 4 in the goddamn morning, right?
yep. Oy
Well,
vey.
6, but this isn't Diamond. Oh God, Diamond.
All right, Raph, where can they find you when you're awake enough to do things?
Man, I am Raph does stuff all over my socials. I am a sometimes Twitch streamer. My schedule right now is supposedly Friday nights and Saturdays. Friday nights is a little fluid because if there's a movie I really want to see, like Superman, I'm not streaming because I'd rather see Superman than stream. And Saturdays is pretty much my day to like talk about stuff and maybe play some games and like yap about whatever the chat wants to yap about. So yeah, twitch.tv/Raph does stuff.
Excellent. And Chris?
Well, you can find me on Blue Sky skeeting on a semi-regular basis about various things that are not my job. Maybe X-Men, maybe movies. I saw the most, again, we didn't even get to talk about Mission Impossible, but that's okay.
I know, it's fine.
It was a good movie. I know some people said it was stinky, but I'll admit it. I went like, yeah, in the theater. I give no shame. But yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky, find me on itch.io, and we just got our TTRPG group started back up at Wonderville.
Nice.
Every third Sunday at Wonderville, we'll be playing various RPGs that are not Dungeons and Dragons. Possibly not this month because there's a Beyblade tournament on the day that we normally do it. And they're
Let her rip.
Yeah, they're like, no, it's Beyblade. We don't have room for you. But hopefully in July, and I'm going to try to get them to play Worldwide Wrestling Ref, and I will let you know, and you should come and meet all my...
I can come now because
There
I
you
don't
go.
work Sundays. And what time is it
Yay.
usually?
Yeah.
Is it usually like in the afternoon? I can definitely
It's
go.
usually from 2 to 6.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we try to get done by 6. We have to be done before 7 because then they set up for the next event and then they get mad at us. So
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I just want to be home by 10 so I can go to bed.
And then they're like,
yeah, no, I don't stay late. They're always like, oh, you should stay for the movie night. I'm like, nope, out the door, leaving.
Bye.
We're in Bed-Stuy. Yeah, I'm not staying in Bed-Stuy any longer than I need to.
Yep.
Yeah, it's about 45 minutes for me I think to get out there. So
Well, there you go. Yep.
It's not too bad. That's how long it takes
That's
me
not
to get
terrible.
there.
Yeah.
I'm in Brooklyn, and that's how long it takes me to get there.
Yeah.
Because, for those who are unfamiliar with New York and the outer boroughs, is that just because we have a subway doesn't mean the subway goes there.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have to take a train to the bus to get to Wonderville.
I live in the Bronx. To get to Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, I have to go back to Manhattan. Yeah.
But we still love the congestion pricing, and we will fight you to the death on it.
Yes, we will. And on that note, if it actually decides
The email
to
address
play,
for Comic Time is
why are you not playing?
comictiming@gmail.com.
Hold on.
Hey, Raph, we can do it.
No.
I used to be able to do it so much better.
I know. Email address for Comic Timing is comictiming@gmail.com. Facebook.com/Comic Timing is where you can find our Facebook. That's also where the Comic Timing fan group lives, so go ahead and join up there if you have not already done so. YouTube.com/Comic Timing Podcast is where you can find the video versions of the show. We have over 150 subscribers, so yay. Let's get even more, shall we? That'd be absolutely lovely there. We're also on Blue Sky we are Comic Timing on Blue Sky, Instagram @Comic Timing Podcast, and also on Threads @Comic Timing Podcast. And a reminder once again to join the Patreon if you haven't already done so. PayPal.me/IamSci-Fi for one-time donations. Thanks to Raph. Thanks to Chris. Thanks to me. And as always, yes.
One more thing.
What?
I googled Doug Ramsey, and my first thought was, oh no, he's hot.
And as always, there's always time for comics and hot Doug Ramsey.
Seriously, why did he get a glow up? It's horrible. Don't do this to
It
me.
is horrible.
I'm 44 years old. I should not be looking at teenage dead mutant